Chapter 1358. Xiaotai watched the spear head towards her, but she didn't move. Finally, the spear stopped when it was less than 10 centimeters away from her. Lu Yin gripped the fake dragon blood tightly. Good spear, I like it. Too bad it's not real. He then exerted some force and stabbed the fake dragon blood into the ground in front of Xiaotai. Give me the real one, little sister. How dare you? The person behind Xiaotai was enraged. It was a middle-aged man with shocking strength, and his rage could shake the world. Long Kuei stepped forward and looked at the middle-aged man. Long Shi stepped forward and stood in front of Lu Yin, exchanging glances with Xiaotai. Xiaotai looked deeply at Lu Yin and then at Long Shi, smiling sweetly. Congratulations, sister. You found a good husband, but brother-in-law is a little stingy. I like stingy men, Long Shi said indifferently. Xiaotai blinked and chuckled. You two are a perfect match. My big brother is too magnanimous, so he's not suitable for you. She then tilted her body slightly, letting her long hair fall behind her as she waved goodbye to Lu Yin. Brother-in-law, today was a happy day. See you later. She then left with the group from Shengwu Plain. Lu Yin watched them leave and turned to leave. He felt like he had caused trouble. Long Shi called out, Where are you going? To study, Lu Yin hurriedly replied. Long Shi looked at him. You did well. She then left on her own. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief as he had thought that she was going to get angry. Actually, with his temperament he would have definitely taught that brat Xiaotai a lesson. However, this was not the fifth mainland, so he held himself back. He had actually been a little impulsive just now, as he had been afraid that Long Shi would consider the bigger picture and blame him. Long Kuei looked at Lu Yin with admiration for the first time. They didn't doubt Lu Yin's strength, as it was just a fake dragon blood spear. Anyone would know that Lu Yin wasn't simple if he could pull out the real thing. However, even if it was just a fake dragon blood spear, Long Shi's heart still stirred when she saw how Lu Yin had brandished the spear. That man was standing up for her, which warmed her heart. Thus, not long after Lu Yin pulled out the spear, Long Shi called him out of the library again. Under his puzzled gaze, she said calmly, As the son-in-law of the White Dragon clan, you have the right to learn inherited battle techniques. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. Inherited combat skills? Which one? The one who trapped him? That's the White Dragon Heaven Inspecting Mirror. It's very difficult to learn. I'll teach you the White Dragon swimming steps, said Long Shi. Lu Yin was disappointed. Although he was interested in footwork battle techniques, he was still more interested in the White Dragon Sky Survey Mirror. He was already very fast, and even if he couldn't compare to Wang Yi with his physical strength, he was still faster than most people. Moreover, he also had the secret art of plan. You don't like the White Dragon swimming steps? Long Shi said indifferently. Lu Yin hurriedly smiled. Of course not. After all, it's an inherited battle technique of the White Dragon clan. Our race. Long Shi's tone grew heavier as she glared at Lu Yin. Say it again. Lu Yin choked. Of course not. After all, it's an inherited battle technique. Long Shi's beautiful amber eyes stared at Lu Yin. Remember, don't say anything wrong in the future. If you do, I'll seal you for a day. Lu Yin pursed his lips. This woman's temper was too bad, and she wasn't suitable to be a wife. Long Shi didn't know what Lu Yin was thinking. She brought him to the peak of a mountain that was as large as a planet. There were civilizations on it, and they were at a height that those civilizations couldn't reach. A huge waterfall cascaded down from the peak, and it was impossible to see the bottom or the sides. This waterfall was large enough to drown an entire planet. The White Dragon swimming steps imitates the movements of the ancestral python. You can observe the changes in the earth and travel through the void. It's one of the fastest footwork battle techniques in the entire astral tree domain. There are very few footwork battle techniques that can compare to it. Once you master it, you can enter the astral source universe, Long Shi explained seriously. Lu Yin was shocked. The astral source universe? Long Shi replied, That's a void that only powerhouses above the emissary level can enter. Ordinary people can't even touch it. She looked at Lu Yin seriously. My elder brother, Long Tian, can use the White Dragon swimming steps to temporarily enter the astral source universe. It's on another level. Lu Yin's expression changed slightly. He naturally knew about the astral source universe. It was the real universe where emissaries fought. It wasn't something he could touch, and he could only see it through the improved spring water. Of course, that was in his normal state. If he was in the Reaper transformation state, he wouldn't know. However, he was certain that no one in the top 10 of the Sovereign Tournament had been able to enter the Astral Source universe. Long Tian, however, had managed to do so. That alone made him surpass the top 10. The junior ancestor of the four-way balance was even stronger than the top 10. Thinking about it, it made sense. During the Supreme Tournament, he had become a Supreme with his invincible God of Death transformation. Next to him were the Prime Clear Wang Yi and Wu Taibai. Wang Yi had yet to reach the level of a junior ancestor in this part of the starry skies. Then, the so-called junior ancestor would at least be on the same level as the Prime Clear or even stronger. Long Shi grabbed his shoulder and said, "Feel it well." She then took a step forward, and the next moment, the scene in front of Lu Yin's eyes distorted and retreated at an extreme speed. It wasn't a change in scenery, but rather Long Shi walking with the white dragon roaming body. This wasn't just pure speed, but a specific path that matched the mountains and rivers. They moved faster and faster until they reached the fastest speed Lu Yin could reach with his physical strength. Lu Yin was shocked. This speed wasn't any slower than Wang Yi's. This woman's speed alone was enough to enter the top 10 of the Sovereign Tournament. With Long Shi's speed, it didn't take her long to circle around the mountain peak. The civilizations that developed on the mountain peak didn't even notice. Not long after, Lu Yin was still at the same waterfall. "You're so fast. How do you compare to the Wang family's second brother?" "You mean Wang Yi?" Long Shi was confused. Lu Yin nodded. "You know him?" Long Shi asked. Lu Yin smiled bitterly. "How could I know him? But from Nong Lai's tone, this Wang Yi should be quite powerful. I'm just making a comparison." Long Shi thought about it. "Pretty much." Lu Yin nodded and recalled Wang Yi's speed. That speed had shocked the entire Sovereign Tournament. "Did you feel it?" Long Shi asked. Lu Yin was stunned. "What?" Long Shi frowned. "White dragon swimming steps." Lu Yin blinked. "You only took me to experience it once. I'm not a cultivation genius." Long Shi stared at him until he felt goosebumps. She grabbed him again and he thought that she would take him to experience it again. Who knew that a strong push would throw him down the waterfall? Go observe how the fish rush up the waterfall. Lu Yin fell down the waterfall and almost cursed out loud. Was this woman crazy? Even if she wanted him to go down, she shouldn't have pushed him. What was the meaning of this? If he didn't have a few tricks up his sleeve, wouldn't she be trying to murder her husband? Lu Yin stabilized himself in midair. The waterfall's impact was powerful enough to crush a Lemmeter into a puddle of blood, but it posed no threat to a hunter like him. Lu Yin found a protruding rock and stood on it. He looked up, but all he saw was the waterfall and not Long Shi. This woman really wasn't suitable to be a wife. Lu Yin didn't have much desire for the white dragon swimming steps. Long Shi had said that Long Zhang had spent more than 10 years cultivating it, and he also needed the same amount of time, so he wasn't in a hurry. However, even though he was not in a hurry, what else could he do here other than cultivating the white dragon swimming steps? Lu Yin thought about it for a long time, but he was helpless. "Forget it, I'll just cultivate the white dragon swimming steps." When the fish swam against the waterfall, they didn't go straight up. Instead, they swam along the waterfall's weakest point, and the white dragon swimming steps followed the same principle. Lu Yin looked at a fish swimming up the waterfall for a few days, and he almost couldn't resist the urge to throw it up. He kept reciting the Stonewall scriptures in his mind. A few days later, Long Shi looked from afar, and beside her was Long Kuei. "Although he might not have a great talent for cultivation, his diligence is not bad," Long Kuei said. Long Shi didn't say anything and silently left. More than 10 days passed and Lu Yin was still observing the fish. In fact, he understood a little. He didn't know how Long Zhang had cultivated for more than 10 years, but he understood. In his mind, he replayed the experience Long Shi had given him over and over again. If not for the fact that he didn't dare to use the serious arts, he could even understand Long Shi's white dragon swimming steps technique. Now he just needed to learn the technique. "How is it? What did you learn?" Long Shi asked coldly. Lu Yin blinked. "Very deep." Long Shi frowned and her eyes showed her dissatisfaction. Lu Yin was confused. What did she mean? He had said, "very deep," which meant that he had learned something. This woman's attitude was wrong. If you can't learn, then you can't. Lying only proves your vanity and arrogance. Long Shi's tone was cold and her previous good impression of Lu Yin was gone. Lu Yin opened his mouth, but he didn't know how to explain himself. Was it wrong for him to learn something? Did he have to apologize for being smart and outstanding? My White Dragon clan's spear techniques are invincible. There is no fixed spear style and every clan member has a deep understanding of the spear. You have to learn spear techniques as well. You don't have to reach the standard of an ordinary clan member, but you have to at least be able to use it. Lu Yin replied, I don't know how to use a spear. Then learn it. You'll need at least 10 years to learn the White Dragon swimming steps and a lifetime to learn spear techniques. Lu Yin felt like she was teaching him like a son. He suddenly thought of a question and asked, if my clan's spear techniques are invincible, then what about the frigid Immortal sect? What do they have to offer? Long Shi's frown deepened and she became even more dissatisfied. She felt like Lu Yin was mocking her. It's none of your business. I'll take you to the ancestral Mang in 3 days. Lu Yin really wanted to know more about that finger. There were no records of it in the biographies or books, so it should be a battle technique from the frigid Immortal sect. The frigid Immortal sect would not allow such a powerful battle technique to be casually recorded. Unfortunately, Long Shi did not respond. This girl's temper was getting worse and worse, and one day she would be suppressed. Chapter 1359. 3 days passed quickly and Lu Yin finally left White Mountain with Long Shi. Their mount was the emissary-level beast that Elder Long Kuei had called Ho. The emissary-level beast was quite fast and it flew from a high altitude. In the blink of an eye, White Mountain gradually disappeared. According to Long Shi, their destination was the mortal realm to pay respects to the ancestral Mang. Every main bloodline member had to pay respects to the ancestral Mang at their wedding. Lu Yin was both nervous and excited at the thought of seeing the enormous ancestral Mang that could wrap around the mother tree. That was a progenitor, and it would be the first progenitor Lu Yin had ever seen. Mountains and rivers flashed by quickly, and the emissary-level beast's speed was far beyond what Lu Yin could see. On the fifth mainland, everything would avoid an emissary-level powerhouse, but in the central realm, there would occasionally be provocative roars. There was no lack of emissary-level creatures here, and Lu Yin trembled when he heard them. He was afraid that they would encounter a creature with a power level of more than 1,000,000 and be swallowed whole. The central realm was huge, and even with Ho's speed, it would take them some time to reach the Bifrost. An invisible layer of air on Ho's back helped Lu Yin and the others block the wind pressure caused by their speed. Lu Yin touched its back, and when he saw that Long Shi and the others weren't paying attention, he pressed harder. Its skin was very thick, and when he pressed harder, the thick scales on Ho's back began to flatten. Lu Yin immediately stopped when he saw this, afraid that he would crush the scales and be discovered. However, his worries were unnecessary. Ho was a beast, and its defense was incomparable to a human's. Lu Yin had been able to repel Emperor Luo and injure Crimson Lord with his bare hands, but it was impossible for him to injure Ho, let alone press down on it. Ho didn't even notice. The mortal realm is dangerous, and only the two of us can pay respects to the ancestral Mang. No one else can protect us, so follow me closely, Long Shi said calmly as she sat in front of Lu Yin. Lu Yin nodded. The Bifrost was getting closer and closer, and White Mountain wasn't too far from it. There was a large area further away, and the farmer's seed garden was even further away. Sometimes, Lu Yin couldn't understand how a tree could be so big that it could support a continent that was even larger than the Outerverse. He couldn't imagine how a python could wrap itself around such a huge tree. This part of the sky was overturning his common sense. Something that defied common sense occurred. He stepped onto the rainbow. Rainbows could also be walked on like land, and there were buildings, armies, and even rivers. The rivers were colorful, exactly the same color as the rainbows. Is this a rainbow bridge? The rainbow bridge was very large. From White Mountain one could see the width of the rainbow bridge. It ran through the 3 realms from top to bottom. Even if the entire White Mountain was moved over, it wouldn't be much to the rainbow bridge. And it was said that this place was under the control of the Shenwu heaven. There was a red glow beneath his feet that was as soft as sand. Lu Yin was rather surprised, but he didn't show it. Within the rainbow the colors flowed, and there was no need for Lu Yin to run. Each color alternated with each other, and there were 7 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. The red color flowed towards the lower realm while the orange color flowed towards the top realm at an extremely fast speed. Lu Yin and Long Shi's group weren't the only ones heading towards the lower realm. There were many others who came from the Middle Realm, and most of them were exploration teams. Even they didn't dare to approach Lu Yin's group. From the books, Lu Yin had learned that the lower realm was one of the most dangerous places in the astral tree realm. In layman's terms, it was the root of the tree. It was filled with terrifying creatures that survived by destroying the mother tree. If even the mother tree could be destroyed, then the people who lived on it would be even more terrifying. The ancestral Mang also lived in the lower realm. The red color flowed towards the lower realm, and Lu Yin's group was very quiet. There was no one around them, and the closest person to them was at least a few 100,000 kilometers away. Just as Lu Yin's group was heading towards the mortal realm, group after group of people stepped onto the Bifrost Bridge. They recalled Lu Yin's appearance in their minds. This person was their target for this trip. There was no place darker than the lower realm, and the white dragons were worshipping the ancestral Mang, so they couldn't be protected by others. This was the best time to act. He followed the Bifrost towards the mortal realm, and soon he saw an endless underground world. This was the land of the Middle Realm, and it took a while for his vision to brighten up. The air had also changed, and it was now slightly damp. There was also a strange smell of decay in the air. Looking into the distance, Lu Yin saw clouds beneath his feet, and even below that he could vaguely make out the outline of a continent. That was the lower realm. After arriving in the lower realm, the aura of the pyrolite suddenly changed. It became incomparably terrifying, as if it was trying to intimidate something. She asked Lu Yin, "Have you been to the lower realm before?" Lu Yin didn't know how to answer, as he was afraid that he would be exposed. "It's normal that you haven't been here before. There's no need to hide it." Lu Yin coughed but didn't say anything. The lower realm is extremely dangerous, and there are all kinds of creatures there. The only purpose of these creatures is to destroy the roots of the mother tree. All living things grow and absorb nutrients, and the mother tree is no exception. You can see these creatures as the mother tree's enemies, but they are also the enemies of humanity, she said. She paused for a moment before continuing. According to statistics, unknown creatures are born every year, and every year members of the White Dragon clan die in the lower realm. The 4 cardinal scales are no exception. As for the exploration teams in the Middle Realm, the number of deaths is incalculable. Some of these people are hired by the mother tree, while others are there to make a fortune or to search for valuable things, such as natural treasures. Lu Yin understood that since the mother tree absorbed nutrients, the roots of the mother tree in the lower realm would definitely be the place with the most nutrients. This way it would be easier for rare treasures to be born. Everything had 2 sides. The mother tree absorbed nutrients from the universe to survive, but the universe couldn't allow the mother tree to absorb them without limit. There would definitely be creatures that would destroy the mother tree, just like how there would always be antidotes within 100 steps of a poisonous snake. It was as if everything in the universe had been arranged. There are many regions in the lower realm, and the overall area exceeds the middle realm and the top realm. We're going to the 3rd region where the ancestral Mang's head is. Because of the head, there isn't much danger there. Even so, we don't have Elder Long Kuei and Tian Ho to protect us, so we have to be extremely careful. Over the years, many of our clansmen have died in the 3rd region, Shi explained. If not for the fact that they needed to investigate the frigid immortal sex finger, this would be the best place to leave the White Dragon clan. Lu Yin stretched out a hand, and a layer of clouds streaked across his palm. It was cold. In the distance, a strange current of air crashed over, distorting the void and bringing with it a world-shaking might. Lu Yin's expression changed slightly. What a fierce attack! Tian Ho raised a claw and slashed down, tearing through the air as it roared into the distance. In the distance, a huge head with a long neck looked up at Tian Ho with a ferocious gaze. It opened its mouth and roared as well. Tian Ho was furious. How dare a beast that wasn't even an emissary provoke him? It didn't even have as many heads as he did. How presumptuous! Just as it was about to roar again to show its might, another head appeared beside it. This one was 10 times larger than the previous one, and its neck was completely raised. It was almost at the same level as Lu Yin and the others, and then it roared at them. Lu Yin felt a chill run down his spine. This was a beast that had surpassed the emissary level, and not just any ordinary level at that. Was this the lower realm? Tian Ho was clearly stunned for a moment, and then it cowered. Its 2 heads drooped as it howled. Long Kuei's mouth twitched. How embarrassing. At this moment, Another head that was even bigger and taller than the second beast that had appeared was raised high up in the air. Long Kuei was stunned. The three heads were raised high and stared at them, and a chill ran up his spine. Lu Yin was stunned. Was this a family of three? How was this possible? Long Shi's expression turned ugly. They had just arrived in the lower realm, and they had already encountered more than one of these monsters. Tian Ho immediately laid down, fully expressing what a coward was. Fortunately, the family of three didn't attack them. The smallest one roared happily and looked very proud, but it was pushed down by the tallest one. It opened its mouth and ran away while the other one growled anxiously. If these three beasts weren't that big and were just like pets, it would have been a very harmonious scene. Lu Yin relaxed. He glanced at Tian Ho. He had thought that this guy was very powerful, but he was actually so cowardly that he could only bully him a little. Long Kuei coughed. Princess, be careful. The lower realm changes every year and sometimes even every day. Leave immediately after paying your respects to the ancestral Mang. Don't linger and don't try to take any strange items you see. It's easy to lose your life. Long Shi nodded. I know. Lu Yin began to feel that he had been too naive. He had thought that the lower realm was the best chance to escape from the White Dragon clan, but in a place like this he could lose his life if he wasn't careful. The lower realm wasn't the end of the Bifrost Bridge, so Lu Yin and the others climbed onto Tian Ho's back. Tian Ho was much more obedient now, and he didn't dare to zhongyang too much. He quietly led them away from the Bifrost Bridge, and his huge body slowly landed in the forest near the bridge. Long Kuei said, Princess, this is as far as we can go. Take care. Long Shi nodded. Thank you, Elder. She then looked at Lu Yin. Let's go. Lu Yin nodded to Long Kuei and followed Long Shi in a certain direction. Do you know the way? We're very familiar with the third region. Even if we haven't been here before, we've memorized the map. How big is the third region? Lu Yin asked. Long Shi muttered. It's about the distance between Baishan Mountain and the Bifrost Bridge. Lu Yin was speechless as this place was too big. Even with Tian Ho's speed, it would take them several days to fly through it. It would take them at least 10 days to traverse it, and that was under the assumption that they would be flying through the sky without any obstructions. If they dared to fly in this place, they wouldn't be far from death. Lu Yin and Long Shi headed in a certain direction while Long Kuei quietly stood in place. Half a day later, a group of people arrived. The leader was a sturdy man who carried a huge metal weapon that was 10 meters tall. He led a dozen people towards the third region. Chapter 1360. When the group saw Long Kuei and Tian Ho, they bowed and greeted them as a sign of respect. Wait, Long Kuei said. The group stopped, and the sturdy leader looked at Long Kuei in confusion. He bowed again. Senior, what are your orders? Long Kuei stared at him. You stay. The man was stunned. Has this junior offended you in any way? Long Kuei indifferently replied, If I tell you to stay, then stay. Everyone else is free to do as you wish. The man's expression turned ugly. Senior, my exploration team accepted a mission and headed to the third district to complete it. Without me, they wouldn't have been able to complete it. It has nothing to do with me. There's no need to waste time, Long Kuei said. The man was helpless. He was just an enlighter who was close to becoming an emissary, and there was still some distance between him and Long Kuei. Tian Ho could easily destroy him. May I know Senior's identity? I can answer to my employer, the man said unwillingly. Long Kuei closed his eyes. The White Dragon Tribe. The man was shocked, and the group behind him was similarly shocked. So you're one of the 4 Libras. Forgive me for not recognizing you, but since Senior has given the order, I dare not disobey. He then turned to the group behind him and said, I can only stay here. If you're willing, you can head to the third district to search. If not, I'll explain to my employer. The group behind him discussed for a while and eventually decided to head to the third district. It was not easy to come to the mortal realm, and not just anyone could come. Furthermore, the Bifrost Bridge was not something that could be climbed at will. The price was too high and they were unwilling to give it up. Not long after, the group headed to the third district. Long Kuei did not stop them. He had only stopped the man because the man's strength was close to that of an emissary, which was enough to cause trouble or even threaten Long Shi. Long Kuei was not afraid that this person would attack Long Shi, but he was afraid that this person would attack Lu Yin. If Lu Yin died, it would be difficult for them to find another Lu Yin. The frigid Immortal sect was not a charity and they would not do such a thing. Long Kuei had stayed here to stop this group of people. Whether or not they really wanted to assassinate Luin, he had to stop them. However, there was more than one entrance to the 3rd district. Long Kuei could only stop the experts in this direction, but he was powerless in the other directions. The White Dragon tribe had developed into the 4 Libras since ancient times, and they had not relied on protection. Kuei had experienced life's death situations. In the lower mortal world, countless skeletons were buried there. Here no one would even know if one died. Not even a corpse would be left behind. It was one of the cruelest places in the starry sky tree. At the same time, in the central plains, a city was lifted up by an unknown strength. It floated high up in the air and slowly swayed. Surrounding the city were chains formed from strange patterns, locking down the entire city. This was the sky cage, the nest. Only serious criminals would be imprisoned in the nest. This sky cage was constantly under the threat of death. An unknown power would only ensure that it did not fall to the ground, but it would not stop any creatures from attacking. Occasionally, there would be giant creatures that would rush into the sky cage and snatch some of the prisoners as food. This place was both a cage and a meal for many creatures. This was the cruelest prison. No one would register the prisoners here because there were people dying every day and people being sent in every day. At this moment, in a corner of the sky cage, the void distorted, tearing apart as it approached. If anyone else saw this, they would be shocked. Only a powerhouse at the level of an emissary or above could tear apart the void of the central plains, and to do so without being detected required even greater strength. The nest was not without experts and there was no prohibition against using force here. A figure fell and smashed into the ground. Due to being eroded by storms for many years, the ground had long since dried up. The figure propped himself up with one hand and looked around. Where was this? At this moment, a man walked over from afar, trembling in fear. The figure looked over and when their eyes met, the man's pupils shrank as he pointed behind the figure. The figure turned around and saw a giant bird-shaped beast rapidly approaching and swiping out with its claws. 3 streams of chi revolved around the figure's body and violently blasted out, forcing the bird-shaped beast to retreat. The bird-shaped beast only had around 300,000 enlighters, which was not enough to threaten the figure, so it had no choice but to retreat. In the distance, the man heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the figure. The 3 streams of chi around the figure made him seem like a deity. This figure was none other than Xianxia. Recalling everything that Elder Chan had said, Xianxia looked into the distance. Was this the legendary place behind the 3 upper gates? Only here could one obtain the origin item and obtain the opportunity to become a progenitor. The only way to obtain this opportunity was to join a group that had become a young ancestor through the origin wheel sacrifice and follow that so-called young ancestor into a place called the Sovereign Realm, where there were countless ancient ruins. So this was the reward for the Sovereign Tournament and it was that opportunity. Here Xianxia was everyone's enemy as he was a stowaway. Once his identity was discovered, he would be surrounded and attacked. In the history of the 5th mainland, there was no lack of elite geniuses like him who had snuck into this place, but very few had ever returned alive. Should he approach a young ancestor? Xianxia pondered over what to do. Far away in the distance, there was a dazzling and beautiful golden wheat field. From above, the wheat field formed various patterns like a child's drawing. Qiushi fell into the wheat field and immediately dodged. She looked up and saw the blurry image of the top realm as well as the stars in the sky. This was the place where she had to approach one of the junior patriarchs after the upper 3 gates. The middle realm had the middle calm sea, and beneath the middle calm sea was a strange underwater city. Xiao Luo had fallen into this underwater city. The top 10 had all fallen into the middle realm and they could only fall into the middle realm. The lower realm was too dangerous and the top realm was too easy to discover. Lu Tianmu stood quietly in the middle of the ruins. She lowered her head and looked at the broken ground. This was a sword scar. She squatted down and touched the sword scar with her finger. Her finger trembled slightly. Lu Tianmu's expression, which had never changed in 10,000 years, was now filled with excitement. She could feel the terrifying sword intent. It might even surpass the 13 swords. She looked up and saw a giant stone tablet in the distance. Ascension Mavis appeared in a river. It was not a normal river but a strange ring-shaped river. Layer upon layer, it extended into the starry sky as if it could connect to a certain star. She appeared in this river. There was a civilization, a ship and a city here. Zhou Xian appeared on the rainbow bridge. He looked at the yellow light beneath his feet and was a little confused. What the hell? Color? It was not the earth nor was it the starry sky. On this yellow there was a city. It did not seem too glaring. There were many powerful families in the Middle Realm and there were many emissaries. Some of these families were attached to the four cardinal scales, some were attached to the Nong family or the Lu family and some were independent. The Bei family was one of them. They did not attach themselves to anyone and their huge family occupied a vast territory. They could survive because the Bei family had emissaries. Similar to the civilization at the peak of White Mountain, the Bei family also had pawns. Each pond had its own civilization. Some civilizations were cultivation systems. Occasionally, someone would cultivate to a certain level and break out of the pond, only to realize that they were just ants in the Bei family's pond. Some ponds developed technological civilizations. Some technological civilizations developed too quickly, and they developed something similar to a spaceship and broke out of the pond. Wu Tai-bai appeared in one of the ponds. Here, technological civilizations developed. Z appeared on a mysterious island that was not made of stone or soil. Instead it was made of food. Even though Z had cultivated for so long and had seen countless strange things in outer space, she had never imagined that she would one day appear on an island made of food. Drunkard appeared on a barren land, but this was not the Middle Realm. This was because Drunkard could see the Middle Realm when he looked up. This was space between the Middle Realm and the Top Realm. She appeared on a planet in this space and this planet's civilization had been destroyed due to the chaos of war. The last person in the top 10 was Obscured. The Hall of Honor had originally sent Starsabil to replace Obscured, but Starsabil had not been willing, so Obscured could only take her place. He arrived in the Middle Realm and arrived at a dusky place that was completely devoid of human habitation. Drunkard released his domain, but he did not see a single person. This was practically a no man's land. At this moment, Lu Yin did not know that the top 10 were all here. He had been one step ahead of the others and he was rather depressed and sullen. Stay away. Don't leave that circle, Long Shi's voice came from afar. She was fighting against an 8-legged frog-like creature. Lu Yin had been ordered by Long Shi to stay in a circle and not move. The circle was a power vessel that isolated the void and protected Lu Yin. In the cosmic tree realm, only envoys could isolate the void. This power vessel was meant for Long Shi to protect herself, and it was now protecting Lu Yin while she faced off against these monsters alone. The 8-legged frog-like creatures were not easy to deal with. They had a variety of colors and it was obvious that they were poisonous. Their strange cries affected even Lu Yin, as his spiritual force was enough to resist Zhou Xian. Long Shi was also uncomfortable. She raised her hand and used the white dragon heaven inspecting mirror in an attempt to trap the monster. However, the monster's venom was so fierce that it corroded the mirror, and it viciously slammed into Long Shi. Long Shi's figure moved and avoided the monster's attack, but it did not attack her. Instead it stared at Lu Yin and opened its mouth, shooting out multicolored venom. Lu Yin felt a chill run down his spine, and he almost put on his universal armor. Don't leave the circle, Long Shi warned, afraid that Lu Yin would flee. Lu Yin did not move and the venom slammed into the circle, distorting the void. However, it did not touch Lu Yin. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this monster only had a power level of 400,000 at most, which was not enough to break out of the circle. Still, it was strange no matter how he looked at it. After a long time, Long Shi finally killed the monster. Its skin was soft but tough and Long Shi's spear could not pierce through it. In the end, she had to stab it through its mouth to kill it. Panting heavily, Long Shi put away her spear, and the circle automatically returned to her cosmic ring. Lu Yin walked over and handed her a bottle of water. Long Shi indifferently replied, "No need." Chapter 1361. Lu Yin wanted to tell Long Shi that he didn't need her protection, but after some thought he decided against it. If he acted too well it would arouse suspicion. Right now he was most curious about the White Dragon clan's secret technique. Long Shi hadn't used any during the difficult battle just now, which was too strange. The four-way scales couldn't possibly have any secret techniques. He turned to look at the 8-legged frog-like monster. One could easily encounter such a monster in the lower realm. If the entire lower realm was thrown to the 5th continent, wouldn't the 5th continent be flooded with blood? Let's go, Long Shi said. She identified the direction and walked off. Lu Yin followed closely behind her. A day later they were attacked again. This time it was a bug that burrowed out of the ground and tried to burrow under Lu Yin's feet. Lu Yin was so frightened that he quickly dodged, but the bug was too weak. It was an explorer at most, and Xianxia instantly killed it. However, when the two saw that the ground was filled with bugs, they quickly fled. There were just too many of them. From Lu Yin's perspective, these towering trees in the mortal realm weren't trees at all. They were roots. The two trekked for a few more days, and during this time, they were attacked by various creatures no less than 10 times. As their field of vision widened, Lu Yin saw a gigantic white head in the distance that almost covered the entire sky. It was the ancestral Mang's head. Lu Yin couldn't see its full appearance at all. Most of the head was above the clouds and only a small portion was visible. Even so, that small portion was so huge that it looked like a continent hanging upside down in the sky. Lu Yin was stunned. No wonder it could wrap around the mother tree. He couldn't even see the end of the head. It was just a head, but it was so huge. Xia's eyes burned with respect when she saw the ancestral Mang's head. She slowly bowed and Lu Yin followed suit. The ancestral Mang should be the most powerful existence in the mortal realm, Lu Yin said. Xi's voice carried a rare hint of shock and excitement. Of course, without the ancestral Mang, these creatures would have rushed to the middle realm. The ancestral Mang suppressed the entire mortal realm on its own. What's the most powerful creature in the mortal realm besides the ancestral Mang? Lu Yin was curious. Xi muttered, I'm not sure. It said that a few thousand years ago, a monster at the level of a half-ancestor was killed, and even before that there was a catastrophe. Everyone who entered the lower realm died, and it even caused a white dragon to rise. Even before that, it was said that there was a fish in the lower realm's ocean that was incomparably huge. It was comparable to the ancestral Mang, and it was recorded in history as the ship fish. Despicable fish? Lu Yin immediately thought of Lord Fish on top of Shiqi's head. Xi glanced at him. The word ship means that the fish is so huge that it's comparable to the ancestral Mang and the sovereign realm's divine eagle. However, it's just a legend and there's no concrete evidence. There are no historical records to prove that it's true. Lu Yin sighed. The lower realm is truly mysterious. Many people hope that this place isn't so magical, especially the Roots organization, Xi said. The Root organization had been established by the four-way scales, and it was a respectable organization that specialized in killing creatures that could easily cause damage to the mother tree. Despite the rewards, the death rate was simply too high. Lu Yin remembered Zhou Xian mentioning that he belonged to the Root organization. Zhou Xian would rather have Lu Yin impersonate Xi and trick the White Dragon tribe than come back to the lower realm, which showed just how much Zhou Xian feared this place. They walked step by step towards the ancestral Mang's head. As time passed, Xi's attitude towards Lu Yin improved, perhaps because they had experienced life and death together. Lu Yin had never experienced something like this before, and it felt pretty good to be protected by a woman even if it was a little stifling. The third district was huge and the two walked for a few days, but they still didn't get close to the ancestral Mang's head. This had to do with the fact that they didn't dare to move too quickly. Previously, they had been moving too quickly, which had caused fluctuations in their star energy and attracted attacks from some monsters. Now, however, the frequency of monster attacks had clearly decreased. Suddenly, Xi stopped and glanced behind them. Someone's here. Lu Yin was a step faster than her, but he had discovered it not through a domain but through star energy. Xi's control of star energy wasn't as high as his, and he had long since sensed that there was someone behind them through the star energy fluctuations. Furthermore, they had been following them for quite some time. The two of them stopped and waited just like that. The other party suddenly stopped as well and didn't approach. Lu Yin frowned as this person had ill intentions. Xi took out a ring and wrapped it around Lu Yin. Don't go out. Lu Yin was speechless as he watched Xi walk away. Not long after she returned, her gaze even colder than before. There was a drop of blood on her cheek that belonged to someone else. Someone who wants to kill me? Lu Yin asked. Xi replied, let's go. She didn't want to talk about it, so Lu Yin didn't ask. Actually, he didn't need to, as no one would come down to the mortal realm to assassinate Xi. Their target was obviously Lu Yin. Had the frozen immortal sex junior ancestor not given up yet? Long Shi was already married to him and had given him her essence blood. To the White Dragon tribe this was a marriage between husband and wife. If Bai Xiaohong didn't care about this, then it was either that he really liked Long Shi, or he had such a grand scheme that he didn't even care about his reputation. Right, Long Shi had mentioned something about a white dragon turning over. What's a white dragon turning over? Lu Yin asked. Suddenly his heart clenched. Not good. If Long Shi had told him about it, then it wasn't some secret. It might even be common knowledge. Long Shi paused and looked at Lu Yin strangely. Lu Yin pursed his lips and didn't say anything. You're not from the White Dragon tribe, so it's normal that you don't know, Long Shi said. Lu Yin relaxed. Right, he had become a son-in-law using Long Qi's identity. Although Long Shi knew, sometimes she would unconsciously treat him as Long Qi. It seemed that the so-called White Dragon turning over wasn't common knowledge in this part of the universe, but rather common knowledge among the White Dragon tribe or the four cardinal scales. The ancestral Mang is the White Dragon. When the White Dragon turns over, the ancestral Mang will turn over, Long Shi explained. Lu Yin was puzzled. Why would the frozen immortal sect want the ancestral Mang to turn over? Long Shi looked up at the ancestral Mang. Because once the ancestral Mang turns over, it might topple the entire mortal realm. Lu Yin didn't understand. You don't need to know too much. Bai Xiaohong covets me because he wants the White Dragon tribe's power to turn over. For that he'll do anything to deal with you. The only thing he'll be wary of is the humble class. Other than that, even the White Dragon tribe Shenwu Plain and the Wang family aren't enough for him to be wary of. The four cardinal scales has its own rules and the humble class is independent. So you want your brother to think of a way for me to join the humble class? Lu Yin asked. Long Shi replied, once you join the humble class, keep a low profile and don't reveal your identity. With Bai Xiaohong's abilities he can arrange for someone to join the humble class, but even if he wants to deal with you he'll have to abide by the rules of the humble class. As long as you don't make any mistakes no one can do anything to you. In half a year at most my brother will let you retire, and it won't be so easy for Bai Xiaohong to deal with you then. Lu Yin sighed. Just listening to it makes me tired. Long Shi looked at him. From the moment you agreed to impersonate Long Qi, your life's trajectory changed. You can either die or do as I say. She then walked away. Why was her temper so bad again? Lu Yin felt helpless. With Bai Xiaohong's methods, there's definitely more than one group of people, Long Shi said and threw the circle to Lu Yin. Protect yourself. Just as Long Shi had said, they were ambushed by many people along the way. Some of them were even openly besieged. These people didn't just come from the 3rd district. Some had come from other districts. They had suffered heavy losses, but Lu Yin didn't know what conditions Bai Xiaohong had given them, but they were willing to risk their lives to kill him. Lu Yin could feel Bai Xiaohong's influence. If they were in the 5th mainland, Lu Yin could also arrange for countless people to assassinate Bai Xiaohong. Lu Yin's status in the 5th mainland was similar to Bai Xiaohong's in the heavens. He could already imagine how exciting the next few days would be. Long Shi dealt with group after group of people. Blood dripped from the tip of her spear, and there were still 3 people around her who looked at her in fear. They then looked at Lu Yin who was in the middle of the circle. They growled and attacked at the same time. Long Shi's spear drew an indescribable trajectory and pierced through the necks of 3 people. In Lu Yin's eyes it was only one spear, but it also seemed like 3 spears. He saw the movement of the spear being retracted, but he didn't see the moment when it was pulled out. The White Dragon clan's spear techniques were invincible, and he had seen it for himself during this period. Long Shi's spear was just as threatening as Wang Yi's 4 ultimates. Lu Yin walked out of the circle and looked around. There were 15 people who had surrounded them openly, but they had all been dealt with by Long Shi alone. Long Shi had also been injured this time and her thigh had been cut open. However, this injury was nothing to her. Long Shi didn't say anything and just walked forward as if she was used to this. Lu Yin hurriedly followed, but suddenly he felt a sense of danger. He subconsciously released his domain and restricted it to a radius of 1 meter. An old woman who had been killed before suddenly appeared and raised her arm. There was nothing in her hand, but Lu Yin's domain seemed to have been pierced by something. He raised his foot to avoid it, but Long Shi hadn't expected anyone to still be alive. She stabbed out with her spear. Long Shi's spear also pierced into Lu Yin's domain and she looked at him in shock. She hadn't expected Lu Yin's domain to be so powerful. Lu Yin's domain's might was comparable to invisible lights. Although it couldn't predict attacks like invisible lights, it wasn't too far off in terms of defense. Long Shi's spear was extremely powerful, but after it pierced into Lu Yin's domain, it was restrained as if it had fallen into a quagmire. The old woman's attack was the same. Lu Yin suddenly retracted his domain, and Long Shi's spear pierced through an invisible weapon. Sparks flew in all directions. Lu Yin still couldn't see the old woman's weapon, but his control of star energy allowed him to sense that it was an invisible thread. The old woman's figure flickered and she rushed in the same direction as Lu Yin. Lu Yin raised a brow. If he hadn't known about her weapon, he would have thought that she was trying to escape. The old woman clearly wanted to use the thread to cut off his neck, and even Long Shi thought that she was trying to escape. Lu Yin immediately took out the circle and the old woman's thread slashed at it. It distorted the void and was unable to penetrate. The old woman's eyes flashed and she immediately fled. Long Shi's palms were sweaty. If Lu Yin hadn't taken out the circle in time, he would already be dead. She couldn't let this person go, or she wouldn't have the confidence to deal with him and the monster from the mortal realm at the same time. She also knew the old woman's origins and she couldn't afford to be careless. Chapter 1362. Stay in the circle and don't come out, Long Shi barked at Lu Yin before chasing after the old woman. The white dragon's swimming step was even faster than the old woman's, so Lu Yin quickly caught up to her. Lu Yin looked at Long Shi's back and sighed. Get up, stop pretending. There were no abnormalities in the surroundings, and Lu Yin scanned the dozen or so corpses on the ground before fixing his gaze on one particular man. He walked out of the circle and looked down at the man. The man's eyes suddenly widened and he stood up, looking at Lu Yin in shock. Are you curious how I found out that you're still alive and that you dared to walk out of the circle? Lu Yin smiled. The man's eyes narrowed and a bloodthirsty killing intent flashed in the depths of his eyes. He suddenly turned around and left decisively. This person was an enlighter, while Lu Yin was a hunter who had walked out of the circle. The man had not even tried to assassinate him. Lu Yin was shocked. This man was definitely a professional assassin, and only such an experienced assassin would be so decisive. If he did not succeed in one hit, he would immediately flee. If he had even the slightest bit of hesitation, he would not attack. Lu Yin's departure from the circle had clearly frightened this man. Shaking his head, Lu Yin summoned the star chessboard beneath his feet and moved. He did not move but instead moved the man in front of him. Under the man's incredulous gaze, Lu Yin raised his hand, and a gust of wind shot out from his fingertip, piercing through the wound that Long Shi had left behind. The man had never imagined that Lu Yin's strength would be so terrifying, to the point that he could not even resist. Lu Yin tossed the man to the spot where he had pretended to be dead and returned to the circle to wait for Long Shi. This was his first time killing someone in this part of the universe and he had not expected to do it here. After a while, Long Shi returned and relaxed when she saw that Lu Yin was safe. She then looked at the corpses. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. Did it go well? Long Shi coldly replied, someone from Boundless. Boundless? Lu Yin was afraid that this was common knowledge, so he did not dare to ask further. Long Shi looked at the corpses one by one, and Lu Yin was afraid that she would discover something strange about the man's death. Long Shi suddenly shouted, don't come out. What's wrong? Lu Yin was confused. Long Shi's eyes narrowed and she scanned the area again. She heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that everyone was dead. She looked at Lu Yin. Boundless? Lu Yin's mouth. How should he answer? No, or not? However, judging from Long Shi's tone, he probably didn't know about it, so he shook his head. The Realmless is the biggest assassin organization in the starry sky of trees. That old woman is a Realmless assassin. Her whereabouts are mysterious and she's good at hiding her aura. Her methods are unique and she has never failed. I didn't expect Bai Xiaohong to hire someone from the Realmless to deal with you. We underestimated the cold Immortal sect's desire for the white dragon to rise again. Long Shi's face turned ugly and he gritted his teeth. Lu Yin's heart sank. They'll probably send more people after this failure. Of course, Long Shi said. I'm being hunted down because of you. Can't you be nicer? Long Shi stared at him. I'll give you that treasure. Protect yourself well. The Boundless assassins are not easy to deal with. If there's any trouble, immediately hide inside. Lu Yin nodded, but he was not happy about it. A power vessel was not enough to trade for his life. The boundless assassins were not easy to deal with, and Lu Yin was only a hunter. Does the boundless assassin have any envoy-level assassins? Long Shi's expression was solemn. More than one. Lu Yin swallowed his saliva. He hated this answer. You're a princess of the White Dragon clan, and I'm also a member of the White Dragon clan. How dare the boundless assassins act against me without restraint? Long Shi replied, the boundless assassinated the sect master of the cold immortal sect. Fine. Lu Yin shut his mouth. The boundless assassins had even dared to assassinate the sect master of the cold immortal sect, let alone a mere son-in-law like him. Lu Yin believed that if there was a suitable price, the boundless assassins would be willing to kill anyone. The boundless assassins were probably the last wave of assassins. Over the next few days the two were attacked by monsters from the mortal realm, but they did not encounter any other enemies. Occasionally they would see other people appear, but they remained vigilant and did not fight. Your domain ability is not bad. Few people in your generation can compare to you, Long Shi said. Lu Yin knew that Long Shi would ask this. I have some talent in this area, but I've reached my limit. I don't know how to cultivate from here on out. Long Shi explained, there are many ways to use a domain. The most common is to form protective armor, use special force fields to attack or predict attacks. Even more profound is the spirit transformation or even the legendary void spirit. I don't know much about this, but when we return to the clan, I'll ask the elders to teach you. If you have talent in this area, your future achievements will not be low. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. Spirit transformation? Void spirit? He had never even heard of it before. The fifth mainland did not have such a realm, or he would have definitely known about it. The sixth mainland even believed that a domain was a low-level cultivation path. The fifth mainland was most likely missing a cultivation method, while the sixth mainland had taken a different path. Regardless of whether it was the cultivation level or the path, this space was similar to the fifth mainland, but it was a level higher. Could it be that the fifth mainland had been separated from this space? They had been in the mortal realm for almost half a month, and while the two were resting, a figure rushed over from behind them. Long Shi was on high alert, but Lu Yin did not say anything and just hid in the circle. They had seen this person before a few days ago. This person belonged to an expedition team, and they had met but had not spoken. Run, run. The fear ants are passing by. The person shouted in fear, quickly passing by Lu Yin and Long Shi and fleeing into the distance. Long Shi's expression changed when she heard this, and she looked behind her. She could vaguely hear rustling sounds, and a chill rose from the bottom of her feet as she saw a large patch of black. Her face paled, and she rushed to Lu Yin's side and used the white dragon's roaming steps. The scenery on both sides quickly receded, and a flock of strange birds flew out in all directions. On both sides of the ground, beasts would occasionally charge out, completely ignoring them as they fled. Long Shi quickly overtook that person, and her expression turned ugly. What fear ants? Lu Yin asked. Shut up. Long Shi barked. Lu Yin looked back and saw that the black shadow was getting closer and closer. It was fast and huge, and more importantly, there was a large patch of emptiness behind it. There had clearly been trees there, no, the roots of the mother tree, but they had all been flattened and not a single blade of grass grew. Lu Yin's expression changed, and he extended his domain. Don't be rash. Those are fear ants that can pierce through domains and spiritual force. Even your circle can't block them, and they can devour the void. Long Shi scolded. Lu Yin quickly stopped, and at this point he could clearly see that the black shadow wasn't a single creature, but rather countless palm-sized ants. They formed a round ball that rolled towards them at an incredible speed, and wherever they passed not a single blade of grass would grow. Similar ants could be found in many places, but none of them could scare someone like Long Shi. These so-called fear ants from the mortal realm actually terrified her. Not long after, the person who had warned them was caught up by the fear ants, and he screamed before falling silent. The fear ants weren't just a single ball. There were many of them, and they could transform into all sorts of shapes. The person was pierced by the ants, and not even his bones were left behind. Lu Yin's scalp went numb. Faster, it's too late. The fear ants were moving faster and faster, and he subconsciously hugged Long Shi. The sensation was quite good, and she stiffened, but she didn't stop him. Escaping was more important. Lu Yin couldn't help but want to put on his universal armor. These fear ants definitely wouldn't be able to destroy it. Suddenly the fear ants stopped and stopped chasing them. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief and Long Shi stopped as well, panting heavily as she looked behind them. Why did they stop? Lu Yin asked. Long Shi pointed upwards. Lu Yin looked up and gaped. This was the ancestral Mang's head. They were so close to it that he could even touch it if he soared into the air. It was no wonder that the fear ants didn't dare to chase them anymore. The ancestral Mang's aura was enough to protect them. If the ancestral Mang hadn't restrained the fear ants, what would we have done? Lu Yin asked. Long Shi replied, there's no time for nonsense. Let's go. She then continued forward, not bothering to pursue the matter of Lu Yin hugging her. Lu Yin looked back at the fear ants. Even the circle couldn't protect him. This thing could devour the void and even the envoys would be in grave danger if they fell in. The mortal realm was too dangerous. The further they went, the lower the ancestral Mang's head became. 2 days later it was only a few dozen meters above the ground. Lu Yin could touch it if he jumped and he really wanted to do so but Long Shi stopped him. They were safe here and with the ancestral Mang's aura present, no beast dared to approach except for humans. Another day passed and Lu Yin finally encountered the ancestral Mang. The moment he touched it he didn't know how to describe that feeling. It was bone-chilling and a shiver that came from his soul spread throughout his body. He didn't even dare to move, and the image of the ancestral Mang soaring appeared in his mind. What followed was a merciless gaze from the ancestral Mang that filled him with boundless fear. There was a thump and Lu Yin was kicked away, breaking free from that bone-chilling cold. Long Shi glared at him. I told you not to be rude to the ancestral Mang. With your strength you're lucky to not die after touching it. Lu Yin sighed and sat on the ground, rubbing his waist as he looked up at the ancestral Mang. He couldn't see the end and all he could see were scales. He would remember that feeling for the rest of his life. This was the first time he had encountered a progenitor, and no one would believe him, let alone the fifth mainland. Speaking of which, the fact that this ancestral Mang could live for so long was terrifying. He'd even push the entire top realm away with a single movement. Right in the sovereign realm, there was an incomparably huge divine eagle at the top of the tree. He really wanted to take a look. After nearly 20 days, the two finally arrived at the ancestral Mang's location from the entrance of the 3rd district. Lu Yin looked up but he still couldn't see the face. All he could see was the jaw, which was boundlessly large. Is this all? We don't have to look at the face? Long Shi looked at the ancestral Mang with a pious gaze. This is all we can do. Lu Yin really wanted to see the ancestral Mang's face, but of course he definitely wouldn't be able to see the entire thing. Chapter 1363. Long Shi began the White Dragon tribe's unique ritual of worship. Lu Yin followed suit and followed suit. He really didn't understand the point of doing all this. The ancestral Mang couldn't possibly open its eyes and bestow them with power. Lu Yin even speculated that if the ancestral Mang did open its eyes, they would be the first to be swallowed. However, they were so small that they weren't even enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Wait, the ancestral Mang had been sleeping all this time. Lu Yin felt like he had discovered the truth and was debating whether or not to tell Long Shi. After completing the ritual, Lu Yin asked, "Can we go now?" Long Shi nodded and looked at the ancestral Mang with fervor. The White Dragon tribe's power comes from the ancestral Mang. If I can see it awaken one day, my life will not be in vain. When will it awaken? Lu Yin was curious. Long Shi's gaze dimmed but she didn't speak. What about the terror ants? We'll definitely go back the way we came and we'll run into more of them. Lu Yin thought of a serious problem. Long Shi squatted down and touched the soil on the ground. The ancestral Mang has been sleeping here for a long time. This soil contains its aura and it'll be enough to deter the terror ants. That's too risky, Lu Yin said. You can stay too, Long Shi said faintly. If you stay, I can announce that you've been enlightened and feel the ancestral Mang's blessing. You can also avoid Bai Xiaohong's schemes. Emissaries won't dare to act recklessly here, and without becoming an emissary, you won't be able to break out of this circle. Long Shi's eyes lit up as she spoke and Lu Yin quickly buried himself in the ground. I still prefer to go out. Long Shi didn't say anything else but she seemed a little regretful. Lu Yin was speechless. This girl really wanted to leave him here. He didn't want to stay in this damned place. the ancestral Mang could crush him if it flipped over in its sleep one day. They came slowly but left quickly. There were no monsters or people here, and it only took them half a day to reach the place where the terror ants had been. Lu Yin panicked as he looked at the endless expanse of empty land. This was the terror of the terror ants. Not even a blade of grass could grow here. The terror ants damaged the mother tree a lot, right? Lu Yin asked. She said solemnly, more or less. The terror ants are one of Root's greatest enemies, and hundreds of experts from the organization die every year. You didn't ask for help from a stronger expert? Are the four-way scales not going to be affected? She said calmly, there are strong and weak horror ants, and their reproductive abilities are unparalleled. They can't be completely wiped out. Most of these creatures in the mortal world destroy their mother trees, but they have their own ecological chain. If one of them is truly wiped out, the consequences could be disastrous. The terror ant had already disappeared. Looking at the empty space, it had gone in another direction. Due to the barren land of the terror ants, the two of them did not encounter any monsters on their way back. They were all scared away by the terror ants. Before they encountered the terror ants, they were already familiar with the path. In less than 3 days, the two of them returned to the entrance of the third zone. They saw Qi's huge body, Elder Long Kue, and some of the people he had forced to stay. Long Kue heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Long Shi and Lu Yin had returned safely. Even though the two of them looked a little battered, it was fine as long as they had successfully paid their respects to the ancestral Mang. There were so many people at the entrance, and all of them were experts. Lu Yin knew that Long Kue had stopped them on their behalf. Most of these people definitely had nothing to do with them, and there were even envoys among them. However, Long Kue had stopped them all just in case. Sorry for the offense, everyone. Please enter now, Long Kue said to the people who had been stopped. The group had no choice but to feign politeness and enter the third zone one by one. Among them, one of them looked at Lu Yin viciously before entering the third zone. Sorry to keep you waiting, Elder, Long Shi said. Long Kue smiled, as long as you're fine. To the side, Qi raised its body and stared at Lu Yin with its two heads. It seemed to be very happy that Lu Yin had returned. Lu Yin felt like this guy was looking at him as if he was a toy. If it hadn't been for the fact that it had admitted defeat when they had first entered the mortal world, Lu Yin would have been a little afraid of it. But now it didn't matter. He was just a coward, and he had his own circle. When he saw Tian Ho staring at him with a playful expression, Lu Yin raised a brow and glared at it. Tian Ho's eyes lit up, and then it opened its mouth to roar. Immediately after, an even louder roar came from afar, and Tian Ho immediately cowered. Lu Yin was shocked as well. Were there that many envoys here? Long Kue helplessly said, let's go. Long Shi stared at Lu Yin and then stepped onto Qi's back. Qi spread its wings and flew towards the Bifrost. Their journey to the mortal world had come to an end. On the Bifrost, the red zone led downwards, while the orange zone led upwards. The Bifrost was huge, and it wasn't easy to travel from the red zone to the orange zone. Even with Qi's speed, it would still take a long time. Lu Yin found it strange that there were no spatial transference devices in this region of space. Even the Astral Combat Academy had one. It was his first time here, and each zone had its own characteristics and rules, so Lu Yin didn't ask too many questions. Sitting on Qi's back, Lu Yin saw group after group of people heading towards the mortal world. Although the mortal world was extremely dangerous, it was also fatally attractive to them. Lu Yin looked down, and those who were above the red zone and heading towards the mortal realm also saw the Tian Ho flying over their heads towards the orange zone, as well as Lu Yin and the others on its back. Many people were envious. An envoy's mount was obviously owned by a superpower, and it might even be the 4 cardinal scales. Qi flew past quickly, but it didn't fly horizontally. Instead, it flew as high as it could. Within the red region, there were 2 people who caught Long Kue's attention. They're actually from the Lu clan. As he spoke, he had Ho slow down. Long Shi followed Long Kue's gaze and saw an old man with his hands behind his back. He looked old and senile, as if he could collapse at any moment. However, Long Shi's expression changed when she saw the old man clearly. Master Yijian Lu Yi. The old man looked up and saw Long Kue and Long Shi. He smiled and nodded. Long Kue nodded. Long Shi pulled Lu Yin up and bowed to the old man. There was a young man behind the old man, and he stared at Lu Yin in a daze with intense shock in his eyes. Lu Yin was the same, and he stared in shock at the young man behind the old man. It was Zhang Dingtian. Lu Yin had never dreamed that he would meet Zhang Dingtian here. When Zhang Dingtian and Bai Shui had been sucked away by Jupiter, Lu Yin had guessed that they had come to this part of the universe. They might meet again in the future, but he hadn't expected it to happen so quickly and so suddenly. Both of them were shocked, but it only lasted for a moment. Long Shi didn't notice it, and Long Kuei and the old man only glanced at each other before not looking at each other again. Thus, no one had noticed anything strange from start to finish. The two didn't recognize each other either. Qi sped up towards the orange zone. Zhang Dingtian retracted his gaze. He was even more shocked than Lu Yin. When he had been sucked into Jupiter with Bai Shui and arrived in this part of the universe, he had thought that he would never meet Lu Yin again. Who would have thought that they would meet again on the Bifrost Bridge so many years later? That's someone from the White Dragon clan. Be careful when you see him in the future. The four-way scales aren't simple, the old man in front of Zhang Dingtian advised. Zhang Dingtian respectfully replied, understood. He hadn't expected Lu Yin to be with the four-way scales. He had been in this part of the universe for many years, and he understood how terrifying and powerful the four-way scales were. They were the rulers of this region, so how had Lu Yin ended up with them? This guy seemed to be the center of attention wherever he went, which was unbelievable. Regardless, Zhang Dingtian was still happy to meet Lu Yin since they were friends. This was the best way to meet an old friend in a foreign land. On Qi Luo's back, Long Shi was curious. Who's that person behind Senior Lu? I don't think I've seen him before. Long Kuei replied, the Lu family is very strange. Every generation there are many people who guard the sword steel for eternity and never leave. It's normal that no one knows about the Lu family's background. That young man isn't weak since he's following Grandmaster Brightblade, Long Shi commented. Long Kuei smiled. No matter what, he can't compare to you, princess. No matter how mystical the sword steel is, it can't compare to the four-way scales. Long Shi nodded as no one could deny this. Lu Yin was speechless as he listened to their conversation. Did everyone with the surname Lu have to be related to the sword? The Fifth Mainland's Lu family had founded the sword sect and controlled the most powerful 13 swords. However, a sword steel had appeared in this region of space, and even the White Dragon clan was afraid of it. It seemed that the surname Lu had always been a powerhouse's surname. Is the sword steel very mystical? Lu Yin asked. Long Kuei did not answer. Long Shi replied, the sword steel was left behind from ancient times, and it's said that it contains the most powerful sword techniques from human civilization. It has always been guarded by the Lu family, and no one knows if the legends are true. However, the Lu family often uses unimaginable sword techniques, and they are the emperors of our cosmic tree realm. Lu Yin understood. So the Lu family is extremely powerful? They can't even reach the top realm and become the four-way scales? My White Dragon clan is still superior. Long Kuei smiled as he liked hearing this. Of course, legends say that the sword steel was left behind by the ancient Wu Tian. That's ridiculous, as Wu Tian was the first human to use weapons. How could he only have swordsmanship? Wu Tian was one of the most ancient ancestors, so how could his things have been passed down until now? People needed to be praised, and when Lu Yin praised the White Dragon clan, Long Kuei immediately spat out some information. One of the most ancient ancestors? There was actually such a powerhouse who had created the first human to use weapons? That was really too far away. Compared to the death god who was more ancient. Long Shi said, Wu Tian's existence itself is also a legend, and there are no historical records that can prove his existence. Perhaps Wu Tian is a kind of spirit, a symbol, or the name of a certain era. That's possible. There are many legends about the ancient ancestors, but very few can be confirmed. Wu Tian, destiny, the death god, and even the ancestors who created the human race. The only one that can be confirmed is Lu. Suddenly Long Kuei paused and did not continue. Long Shi trembled and remained silent. Chapter 1364. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. What did that mean? Was it a surname? Or was it the title of an ancestor? Could it be the oldest progenitor that had been confirmed and discussed alongside the Grim Reaper and Fate? Was it related to the surname Lu? He looked at Long Kuei, but the old man's lips were sealed. Lu Yin's heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. He wanted to ask, but Long Kuei definitely would not say anything. There was one thing that Lu Yin was certain of. His real name could not be exposed. The surname Lu seemed to be rather unique in this region. On the fifth mainland it was one of the primeval surnames just like Lu and Bai. However, in this region it was rather strange. The cloud pass stone on Long Shi's wrist vibrated and Long Tian's figure appeared. It's done. Immediately bring Long 7 to the Yin Mountain District to report. He has officially joined the humble class, and the mission location will be the Yin Mountain District of the Central Plain Realm. Long Shi nodded. Understood. Long Tian looked deeply at Long Shi. Warn him not to cause trouble. Stay there for a few months and I'll think of a way for him to obtain contributions so that he can smoothly retire. He then vanished. Long Shi said to Long Kuei, Yin Mountain District. Long Kuei sighed. Young ancestor, you've put in a lot of effort this time. Among the humble class, the Yin Mountain District is the most suitable for him. There are only young masters and young mistresses there and it's not dangerous. There are also very few missions. Zhou Xian is famous for being lazy and never fights for contributions. Even the 4 scales of the upper realm sent their hedonistic sons to the Yin Mountain District. Stay there for a few months, earn some contributions and retire. He'll be safe for the rest of his life and no one will dare to touch him. Just a few months and he'll be protected by the humble class. Young ancestor must have paid a heavy price. Long Kuei had said that Long Tian had paid a price, but he was actually referring to Long Shi. He was well aware of the siblings' situation, and Long Tian would not have been able to reach this stage without paying a huge price. It was easy to throw someone into the Yin Mountain District, but it was difficult to obtain contributions there. Most of the young masters and young mistresses there could not obtain any contributions. Only the 4 scales had the ability to do so. Retiring without contributions would at most add a layer of polish to one's identity and make others wary. However, retiring with contributions was different and one would obtain the protection of the humble class. The humble school was famous for being protective of their own. There were many experts in the humble school and they had great authority. If they could obtain the protection of the humble school, no one would dare to touch them. Long Shi had promised to help Long Tian go to the world of sovereigns in order to let Lu Yin join the humble class and earn enough merit to retire. The higher the price Long Tian was willing to pay, the more dangerous the trip to the sovereign realm would be. Although they hadn't known each other for long, Lu Yin could feel that Long Shi truly cared about him. Even if she was just using him, it was still a form of care. He didn't want her to throw her life away. I don't have to go to the humble school, but you don't have to accompany him to the ruler realm, Lu Yin told her. Long Shi looked at him. You saw what happened in the mortal realm. There are people who want to kill you all the time and they even hire boundless assassins. Without the protection of a poor student, you'll be walking on the edge of a cliff for the rest of your life. You can die at any time. Life and death are determined by the heavens. To be honest, everyone is afraid of death, but I don't want to sacrifice you in exchange for my life. You should know that if you die in the sovereign realm, I won't be able to live either. My family won't care about my life. Long Kuei glanced at Lu Yin. This kid was pretty smart. Long Shi looked deeply at Lu Yin and her tone was much gentler than before. Don't worry, I won't die. Lu Yin didn't say anything else as he couldn't change her decision. Be honest when you go to the Yin Mountain District. You don't have to make friends with anyone and you don't have to live like a coward. You're the illegitimate son of the Riverside clan's leader, so you'll change your name to Riverside E when you get there, Long Shi said. Change my name? What? Lu Yin didn't understand. Long Shi explained, the 4 cardinal scales are too big of a target and your status is too high. If you join the Yin Mountain District as a white dragon, you'll become the center of attention. Even in a place like the Yin Mountain District that's just waiting to die, there will still be disputes. The White Dragon clan's identity is too sensitive, so it's not suitable for you to join. Lu Yin nodded. Riverside E then. Thankfully his name was good, but his status as an illegitimate son was a little unsightly. Do you know anything about the humble school? Long Shi suddenly asked. She had said so much, but she hadn't even asked if Lu Yin knew anything about the humble school. Lu Yin hated being asked such questions and he was afraid that they would be common-sense questions. Then you don't, Long Shi said as she looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin liked how confident she was. The humble school was established in the 4 cardinal scales, and its responsibility is to eliminate traitors among the humans. It has great authority and has a total of 13 gates. There are 4 in the top realm and 9 in the middle realm, and the Een Mountain District is one of the 9 gates. In theory, all 13 gates have to go out on missions every day and face great danger, but the Een Mountain District is an exception. The entire place is desolate and very few humans live there, let alone traders. That's why the Een Mountain District is the best place to gain experience. Lu Ying really wanted to ask who the human race's enemy was and how there could be traders and traders, but this was obviously common sense and he didn't dare to ask. The biographies didn't mention it either. Speaking of which, most of the biographies were fabricated, and what Lu Ying could glean was only the most common knowledge, such as the name of this region, the land, and even some of the regions. After that, the group arrived at the Orange region and descended. They followed the color and headed towards the middle realm. She gave Lu Ying a cosmic ring. Lu Ying looked at it and was shocked. So much money? She was very generous for some reason and she gave Lu Ying 50 million star essence. This was quite a lot, so much so that it was strange. The Een Mountain District is desolate, but those young masters have built a paradise there for them to enjoy. Don't embarrass yourself there, Longxi said calmly. Lu Ying seriously sized up Longxi. Although this girl had a fiery temper, she was very considerate. She didn't want him to embarrass himself outside. She glanced at Lu Ying and frowned when she saw his expression. Don't overthink it. I just don't want you to embarrass the White Dragon tribe. Lu Ying pursed his lips. White Dragon tribe. His identity to the outside world was Lin Jiangyi. This girl wasn't honest at all, but she was very cute. Do what you should and don't do what you shouldn't, Longxi added as she stared at Lu Ying with a warning look. Lu Ying understood and a brothel suddenly popped up in his mind. There's something more important. Long Kuei suddenly spoke up and looked at Lu Ying sternly. Don't go near Zhou Xian. Lu Ying was confused. Longxi didn't understand either. What do you mean, elder? Long Kuei looked back and said seriously, Zhou Xian has a complicated background. Don't get close to him or have anything to do with him. Otherwise, it'll be troublesome. Lu Ying hurriedly agreed. Understood, elder. Jian Wushuang spread its wings and flew away from the Bifrost. Lu Ying looked back. The Bifrost was huge and there were civilizations and cities on it. It was almost like a colorful continent. There were the lower realm, the central realm, the top realm, the ruler's realm, and the stars above. This space was even more interesting than the fifth mainland. The Een Mountain District and the White Mountain District were not in the same direction, and even if they were slightly offset, there would still be a considerable distance between them. Jian Wushuang flew towards the Een Mountain District. A few days later, Lu Ying was attracted by a strange light in the distance. It was just a speck of white, but it was the most eye-catching scene in the universe. Lu Ying looked at the speck of white, and it gradually expanded until it enveloped him. Suddenly his mind buzzed. Not good. It was a spiritual force attack. Lu Ying's eyes turned cold and he growled. Beside him, Long Kuei was alarmed and he turned to stare into the distance. How dare you? He raised a palm and slapped out. The palm wind tore through the void and disappeared. Following that, the white light in the distance was obliterated as the palm shattered the heavens. It wouldn't have been difficult in the fifth mainland and Lu Ying could have done the same. However, it was completely different in this part of the universe. His full-powered attack couldn't even tear through the void, let alone obliterate it. If Long Kuei's palm had been used against Lu Ying, he would have died without a doubt unless he wore universal armor. The white light was swallowed up by the obliterated void, forming a black hole that scattered in all directions. Jian Wushuang let out a furious roar that spread out in all directions. Beads of sweat dripped down Lu Ying's forehead as he panted heavily. Longxi supported him with one hand. How are you? Lu Ying panted again and waved a hand. I'm fine. Long Kuei's face was terrifyingly gloomy. It's an assassin from Boundless. Only that place has all sorts of assassination methods that are impossible to guard against. Even I didn't notice it. Lu Ying was still afraid as Boundless was truly terrifying. The assassination attempt in the mortal realm had been within his range of vision, but the scene that had just occurred had exceeded his expectations. A white light had attracted Lu Ying's attention, and a spiritual force attack had followed his line of sight. If not for Lu Ying's powerful spiritual force, he would have been turned into an idiot in an instant. This person had dared to assassinate Long Kuei, who had a power level in the hundreds of thousands. It was no wonder why he had dared to assassinate the sect master of the frigid immortal sect. At that moment, Lu Yin was quite wary of Boundless. This time, Boundless had clearly not expected Lu Yin's spiritual force to be so powerful. What about the next time? The assassination attempt in the mortal realm had failed, but Lu Yin believed that Boundless would have a 90% chance of succeeding the next time. Lu Yin's thoughts were in a mess. He had thought that with the universal armor, the circle that Longxi had given him, the Tianhuang array and the walnut power vessel, he would be safe. However, he had underestimated this region of space. If even one's line of sight could be used as an assassination method, then what else was impossible? Well, hearing. What else? This Boundless might have used anything that humans could come into contact with as an assassination method, which was extremely terrifying. Longxi's expression turned ugly. Where's that assassin? Long Kuei replied, dead. Lu Yin looked into the distance. He was traumatized and he would not dare to look around in the future. This time he used spiritual force to assassinate. Although that assassin's spiritual force wasn't very powerful, he used it exquisitely. He was actually able to assassinate with his line of sight, Long Kuei said. Longxi looked at Lu Yin. The assassin was careless once, but he won't be careless a second time. This time the assassin's spiritual force wasn't strong, but it might not be the same next time. Chapter 1365. Long Kuei solemnly said, don't worry, I'll be on full alert on the way to the Yin Mountain district. This won't happen again. Once I join the humble class, the boundless assassins will demand a lot more rewards, and Bai Xiaohong might not be willing to pay. Even if the assassination is successful and the humble class investigates, he might not be able to afford it. That person is unreasonable. Longxi nodded. There was one thing they all knew, but they did not say it out loud. Even if Bai Xiaohong did not hire boundless assassins, he still had ways to deal with Lu Yin. Even if Lu Yin joined the humble class, he would still have ways to deal with him. Longxi was in a bad mood. She was exhausted from the repeated assassinations. The more frequent the assassinations, the greater the frigid immortal sect's scheme against the White Dragon tribe. It also meant that the frigid immortal sect cared less about the White Dragon tribe. What did this mean? It meant that the frigid immortal sect was strong enough to break the rules of the four cardinal scales. A woman appeared in her mind. It was this woman who had transformed the frigid immortal sect. By Xianxia, this woman was above the entire starry sky of the trees. The Yin Mountain district was a gloomy place just from its name. In reality, it was desolate and uninhabited. No one lived in this huge area because it was not suitable for living. There was a huge poisonous swamp filled with marsh gas that covered the entire area. A group of creatures that were born from this swamp lived in the Yin Mountain district, making it uninhabitable. The humble class had many experts, and the Yin Mountain district was the smallest of the 9 gates of the Middle Realm. They had set up a separate gate here because the area was too big. Without the Yin Mountain district, the other 8 gates would take care of the Yin Mountain district, which would take too much time and not be worth it. The Yin Mountain district was useless, but it was a pity to abandon it. Many people thought that the Yin Mountain district was a place for rich kids or those who had made mistakes. Those who wanted to make a name for themselves or were punished for their mistakes would all come here. There was only one city in the entire Yin Mountain district, Yin Mountain City. Unexpectedly, the city was very lively. Although there were not many ordinary people, there were many cultivators, and most of them were eating, drinking, and gambling. Anything that could be done in the outside world could be done here. This city specialized in making money from rich kids. Outsiders could enter and leave Yin Mountain City at will, but the humble class's headquarters in the Yin Mountain district was in the Black Wasteland to the west of the city. Tianho had long since changed its physique when it had approached the Yin Mountain region, and it had become an ordinary creature with the strength of a hunter. That way it would not attract any attention. They landed on the west side of Yinshan City and Lu Yin leaped down. Long Kuei said, I can only send you up to this point. Your identity is Lin Jiangyi, so remember not to get too close to Zhuxi. Longxi looked at him from the back of the chariot. Keep a low profile and don't cause any trouble. You'll be able to follow me to the top world in half a year at most. Take care of yourself during this time. Lu Yin nodded. Don't worry, I'm an honest person. Very quickly, the Tianho soared into the sky and looked at Lu Yin with its 4 eyes before turning around and flying off in another direction. Lu Yin could see the pity in its eyes. This mount was really treating him like a toy. Lu Yin watched Tiandi disappear into the distance until he could no longer see it. He stretched lazily and took a deep breath. It felt great to be free. Under his feet the ground was soft and black. It was obvious that this was not a good place. Lu Yin followed Long Kuei's instructions and headed to the headquarters in the Yin Mountain district. This was a mountain range and there were no signs of human habitation. Occasionally there would be some strange-looking creatures. They all looked ferocious as if they had never seen the sun for a long time. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Lu Yin walked along the mountain range for half a day before finally seeing a large cluster of buildings that stretched into the distance. These buildings were built against the mountain and seemed to be embedded in the mountain itself. This was the headquarters in the Yin Mountain district. As he approached the headquarters, Lu Yin's domain sensed intense star energy fluctuations in front of him. He raised a hand and slowly moved it. There were about 100 people fighting in front of him, and the strongest among them was only a hunter. They were not a threat, so Lu Yin quickened his pace. Not long after, he crossed over a patch of black land and saw that outside the headquarters in the Yin Mountain district, there were more than 100 people engaged in a chaotic battle. Roars of battle rang out, and even further away, there were a few people inside the headquarters who were pointing and whispering. There were also a few who did not seem to care and continued with their own matters, as if this was a common occurrence. Lu Yin looked up at the headquarters in the Yin Mountain district. As one of the 9 gates of the commoner realm, there were envoys here as well as enlighters with power levels of 300,000 to 400,000. Lu Yin still had to disguise himself just like he had when facing Long Kuei and Long Shi. Below him the battle seemed intense, but there were no deaths and none of them were using any weapons. Most of them were only explorers and some were not even explorers. Of course there were also cruisers and hunters among them. This region of space was extremely stable and the ground was abnormally tough. Even with so many people fighting, the destruction would not be too great. If it had been the 5th mainland, then many planets would have been destroyed. Amidst the chaotic battle, the one that attracted Lu Yin's attention the most was the battle in the center, which was between 2 young men. Their battle could be said to have spanned the entire battlefield. Lu Yin saw the 4 ultimates technique from a slightly plump pale-faced fatty who was not ugly, but had an oily appearance. "Mo Gaoha, today I'm going to beat you until you shit your pants." "Idiot." Bang. There was a loud bang as the shockwave distorted and exploded, pushing away everything within a kilometer. Both were hunters and the pale-faced fatty's footsteps were light as he quickly flitted past. This speed caught Lu Yin's attention. Although it was far from reaching Wang Yi's level, it was still considered extremely fast among those of the same generation that Lu Yin had seen before. It was comparable to the speed of someone like Yu Hua who was an enlighter. Furthermore, this person was only a hunter. 4 ultimates technique, Kuei Xiong. The pale-faced fatty roared and his body visibly bulked up. It was as if all of his fat had turned into muscle. On the other side, the man named Mo Gaoha had a stern look in his eyes. "Wind god, you." As soon as he spoke, the star energy around his body transformed into a hurricane that enveloped his entire body. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, blurring the void and isolating himself. The pale-faced fatty punched out and fiercely slammed into the hurricane. The ground cracked and countless sharp edges shot out in all directions. Many people cried out in pain, but because the force behind the punch was too great, the fatty could not stop himself, and his entire body was swept to the side by the hurricane. Mo Gaoha took advantage of this opportunity and sneered as a blade appeared in his hand. The fatty gritted his teeth and spread out his fingers. 4 ultimates technique, Pearl Radish. Mo Gaoha did not know what had been sealed, but his entire body suddenly fell to the ground. However, before he hit the ground, he viciously swung his blade at the fatty. The fatty's arm was slashed by the blade and a trace of blood splattered onto the ground. Mo Gaoha crashed heavily onto the ground and his face immediately turned red. "Mo Gaoha, you're despicable. You actually used a weapon." The fatty roared as he punched out. Mo Gaoha roared back, "You're the despicable one, you damn fatty. You actually sealed my legs." He used his hands as his legs and continuously retreated in a comical manner. The fatty laughed and punched the ground. The enormous force of the punch overturned the ground and sent Mo Gaoha flying away. At this moment, several people surrounded the fatty and he roared towards the sky. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. The fatty punched the void and the air was distorted by the enormous force. A visible shockwave swept out in all directions and sent the people surrounding him flying. At this moment the fatty was like a god of war and countless people cheered for him. Mo Gaohe was furious. The Wang family's Pearl Luo was extremely disgusting. She could seal any ability and Mo Gaohe was at a disadvantage every time he fought this fatty. Alright, stop messing around. Disperse. A loud voice resounded throughout the area. Lu Yin's heart tightened. This emissary-level expert should be the leader of the Yinshan district's headquarters, one of the 9 gates of the humble middle realm Zhuxi. In this place only Zhuxi had the strength of an emissary. The fatty was indignant but he did not attack again. Zhuxi was lazy and did not care about anything, but as long as he spoke they had to give him face. After all, he was an emissary. Mo Gaohe's legs could move freely now and he immediately stood up. He looked at his palms and saw that they were all bruised. This damn fatty had embarrassed him so much. Mo Gaohe, was it fun? Ha! The fatty laughed and the group behind him laughed as well. Mo Gaohe snorted and his lips curled up. Damn fatty, are you happy? You're about to be kicked out of the Wang family. The 4 cardinal scales has always nurtured elites, and they claim that no one in the family is useless. You're the only one. The fatty's face sank. That's still 100 times better than a treacherous person like you. Mo Gaohe was disdainful and the group behind him glared at the fatty's group. The 2 sides were clearly divided. Captain, there's someone here, someone behind Mo Gaohe reminded him. Mo Gaohe's eyes lit up and he looked up to see Lu Yin looking at them. At the same time the fatty noticed as well and his expression turned ugly. Mo Gaohe looked at Lu Yin. Brother, come down. You must be new to the Yinshan district. Lu Yin jumped down and stood between the 2 groups. He looked at Mo Gaohe. I'm new. Please take care of me, seniors. Mo Gaohe smiled. No problem. According to the rules you belong to my team. Go and report to the sect master. Right, what's your name? Linjiang Yi, Lu Yin replied. Mo Gaohe was stunned. Linjiang? The fatty's eyes lit up. You're from the Linjiang family? Lu Yin looked at the fatty and smiled. That's right. Hi Mo Gaohe, are you retarded? He's from the Linjiang family. Why would he join your team? Brother, come over here and join us. Mo Gaohe glanced at Lu Yin coldly and then turned to leave. Lu Yin was curious and walked over to the fatty. The fatty was very enthusiastic. Brother, don't be so reserved. You're from the Linjiang family, which means you're a vassal of the White Dragon clan. The White Dragon clan has always been on good terms with my Wang family, so it's only natural for someone from the Linjiang family to join my team. Who are they? Lu Yin asked. The fatty replied, the idiot in the lead is called Mo Gaohe. He's from the frigid Immortal sect. Lu Yin was shocked and turned to look at Mo Gaohe. He hadn't expected to meet someone from the frigid Immortal sect so soon. A new month has arrived. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Book friend 542104114 Long nights dreaming of meth, lonely wind. Brother, I'll give you your tips. I've done my best and have been writing all night. I'll continue to write tomorrow. Thank you for your support. End of chapter. Chapter 1366. No matter which family it was, there was no lack of hedonistic disciples. Not all of them were elites, and it was the same for the frigid Immortal sect. Mo Gaohe's reputation in the frigid Immortal sect wasn't too good. In terms of strength, he shouldn't be a hedonistic disciple since he was a hunter. His strength was at the peak of his peers in the 5th mainland, and he could enter the top 20 of the sovereigns. Let's go, I'll take you to 4th uncle. The white fatty patted Lu Yin's shoulder enthusiastically and led him into the headquarters. The rest of the group dispersed as well. The headquarters in the Yin Mountain district was very ordinary, and it wasn't as elegant as the buildings in the White Dragon clan's White Mountain. It was like an ordinary house embedded in the mountain. After a series of turns, the white fatty led Lu Yin to the highest level, where he met the 4th uncle that the fatty had mentioned, Zhuxi, the sect master. Lu Yin quickly bowed. Junior Lin Jiangyi greets the sect master. Lu Yin had heard from Long Kue that Zhuxi was lazy and didn't care about other people's business, but he hadn't expected him to be this lazy. He was drinking alone by the window with a few side dishes in front of him, and he was even reading an unknown book. He seemed to be enjoying himself, and it was hard to imagine that the sect master didn't care about the chaotic battle between his subordinates. 4th uncle, this is a new brother. He'll be Wang Dashuai's underling from now on, the fatty announced loudly. Lu Yin looked up at Zhou Xian. Fourth Zhou finished the wine in his cup and turned to look at Fatty Bai. He glared at him. What little brother? Where do you think this is? This is the humble school. The fatty smiled. Yes, fourth uncle. Hurry up and prove his identity. I want to give my brother a welcome dinner. Zhou Xian sighed and shifted his gaze to Lu Yin. Raise your head. Lu Yin looked up and met Zhou Xi's eyes. The moment he saw Lu Yin's face, Zhou Xi's pupils shrank imperceptibly, but they quickly returned to normal. He waved his hand. All right, from now on he's a member of the humble school. He pointed at Lu Yin's arm and a symbol appeared. It was the symbol of the humble school. Take care of your brother. Don't forget the lesson from last time, Zhou Xian said. The fatty's gaze turned cold. Fourth uncle, that bastard Mo Gaohe won't succeed again. If he tries anything else, I'll let him know how to write the word, death. Zhou Xian waved his hand. The fatty pulled Lu Yin's hand. After the two of them left, Zhou Xian frowned and looked at the clouds in the distance. No one knew what he was thinking. Lu Yin had thought that the white fatty would show him around the Yin Mountain district, but he was brought to a place called Fragrant Brothel in the blink of an eye. In front of his eyes he could smell the fragrance of wine and wine. Beside him there were two exquisite beauties accompanying him. Life was full of wonders. Lu Yin would never have thought that he would be with Long Shi and the others in the morning and come here at night. He swallowed his saliva. He was so nervous. The white fatty was clearly a veteran of flowers and he was having fun with a few of his close friends, completely forgetting about Lu Yin. By the time he came back to his senses, Lu Yin was still drinking, and the two beauties who had accompanied him were long gone. Or did he have other hobbies? Of you. Here. You. Is. Lu Yin smiled wryly. I'm tired. I don't want to play anymore. The fatty was stunned. He looked at Lu Yin in a daze and gave him a thumbs up. Haha. Brothers, if you see Mo Gaohe come out to play, just say that. Let's beat him to death. Beat him to death. Everyone raised their cups in celebration. Lu Yin didn't know what they were so happy about. The fatty must have thought that he was pretending, but he wasn't. Brother, if you're tired, just rest for a few days. You're a man and there's always a day when you don't want to play. We're not eunuchs, the fatty said as he patted Lu Yin's shoulder. Lu Yin pursed his lips and looked outside. Most of the customers in the city were cultivators who had come from afar. Most of them were from poor families and most of them were hedonistic sons of rich families. According to the fatty, the city had been built by hedonistic sons of rich families who had come to the Yin Mountain range. There was everything to play with. After a few hours the fat man and the others left. Brother, I'll show you around Yin Mountain City, said Lin Feng, smiling. No need, I'll go by myself, Lu Yin said. The fatty said, that won't do. Yin Mountain City isn't a place you can casually stroll around. My men can only go to the northern part of the city, while Mo Gaohe's men can only go to the southern part. No one is allowed to break the rules or else it'll be a fierce battle. At this point he seemed to have thought of something and gritted his teeth. Back then there was a new brother who didn't know the rules and went to the southern part of the city. He was ruthlessly humiliated by Mo Gaohe and left the Yin Mountain district the next day. Lu Yin nodded. Thank you, Brother Wang. The fatty waved his hand. We're brothers, so there's no need to be so polite. Your Riverside family has ties with my Wang family. Although we haven't met before, I'll definitely take good care of you on account of our relationship with the White Dragon tribe. Wang Dashuai, haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? You've thrown your face all the way to the middle realm. A pleasant female voice mocked them from behind. The fatty and Lu Yin turned around to see a beautiful woman standing not too far behind them. Her eyes were filled with disdain. She was beautiful and dressed in tight clothes that gave her an irrepressible sense of power. Her legs were long and slender, and her skin was so fair that it dazzled the eyes. The fatty's expression changed when he saw her, and he revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. Sister Yin, when did you come back? The woman ignored Wang Dashuai and looked at Lu Yin with a frown. Newcomer? Have we met before? The fatty hurriedly replied, Sister Yun, he's Lin Jiangyi from the Riverside family. He just joined the Yin Mountain range. Lu Yin looked at the woman and was sure that he had never seen her before. However, her gaze inexplicably disgusted him for some reason. She was astonished. The Riverside family? She carefully sized up Lu Yin and felt that he was very familiar, but she just couldn't place him. Lu Yin smiled. I'm Lin Jiangyi. Have we met before? She asked. Lu Yin thought for a moment. Maybe I find you familiar as well. She still couldn't remember and she glared at the fatty. I heard that you fought with Mo Gaohe again. Don't cause trouble and look for trouble. The fatty hurriedly replied, No, I didn't cause any trouble. That brat was looking for trouble. He actually dared to have designs on you, Sister Yun. Isn't that just courting death? He should take a look at himself first. Bai Xiaohong is the only one in the entire frigid immortal sect that's worthy of you. The woman snorted and walked past the two of them before leaving. Once she was far away, the fatty spat. What the hell is that? Lu Yin was shocked. He had thought that the fatty liked that woman, but what did that mean? Why did he change his attitude so quickly? Brother, remember you can offend anyone in the Yin mountain range, but don't offend that woman. Lu Yin was puzzled. Why? The fatty replied, her name is Wang Yun and she's also from the Wang family. Her background is complicated and Mo Gaohe came here to pursue her. Why did she come to the Yin mountain range? Lu Yin asked curiously. That woman didn't seem like a spoiled brat. The fatty replied, I don't know the exact reason, but I heard that she made some sort of mistake and was sentenced to serve in the Yin mountain range for 20 years. 20 years wasn't a long time for cultivators, and the fact that this woman was sentenced to serve in the Yin mountain range meant that she had made a serious mistake. Even with her background, she couldn't be pardoned. This also meant that she had an extremely deep background and wasn't punished too severely. The Yin mountain range wasn't dangerous, and with Yin mountain city, it was practically a vacation spot. Lu Yin successfully joined the Yin mountain range and mingled with the fatty. In a dark place in the central realm, Elder Green Apricot of the frigid immortal sect raised a hand, causing the Cloud Connect stone to tremble. A pair of narrow dark eyes then appeared. The target has joined the humble class. The price has changed and increased by 5 times. Elder Green Apricot was furious. It's your unbounded realm that didn't succeed and gave him time to join the humble class. Why should we pay the price? The information you gave was inaccurate. The target's spiritual force isn't weak, or he would have died long ago. Doesn't Unbounded Realm have your own information network? Elder Green Apricot was furious. If you want to use our information network, the price will also increase by 5 times. We're already being kind by not pursuing the matter of your information being inaccurate. Elder Green Apricot replied coldly, Unbounded Realm is a man of his word. I don't think so. Elder Green Apricot, be careful with your words. Otherwise, Unbounded Realm will make you regret it. The eyes grew even darker and more terrifying. Elder Green Apricot's eyes flashed and he said, Give me some time to think about it. All right. The image then vanished. Elder Green Apricot clenched his fists. If not for the junior ancestor's orders, he wouldn't have contacted Unbounded Realm. These despicable assassins were capable of anything, and interacting with them was like playing with fire. However, he had no other choice. After some thought, he used the Cloud Connect stone to contact someone. Soon after, the image of a young girl with a pure appearance appeared. It was clearly a young girl, but Elder Green Apricot's attitude was very respectful. Miss Yuchen, Unbounded Realm wants to pay 5 times the price. What does the junior ancestor think? The girl replied, The information we gave was inaccurate, so Unbounded Realm's demands are reasonable. However, since he joined the humble class, we can't use Unbounded Realm's power to assassinate him. Otherwise, if the humble class pursues the matter, the junior ancestor will be in trouble. Please advise me, Miss Yuchen, Elder Green Apricot said. The girl replied, You don't have to worry about this matter. She then ended the call. Elder Green Apricot was stunned, and he stared at the Cloud Connect stone in silence. Elsewhere, after the girl ended the call with Elder Green Apricot, she immediately contacted someone else. Mo Gaohe. Mo Gaohe's status in the frigid immortal sect was not low, but it wasn't high either. His influence was limited to the level of a disciple, and that was the case even if he was a hunter. This was why he wanted to chase after Wang Yun and use her to rise to the top. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Thank you, brothers, for your tips. Chapter 1367. Bai Xiaohong was the junior ancestor of the frigid immortal sect. Although he was also a disciple, his influence was immense. Even a maid dared to be rude to an elder, and Mo Gaohe couldn't compare to him. Mo Gaohe had never thought that Miss Yuchen would contact him one day, and he was so excited that he couldn't speak. Miss Yuchen, if there's anything you need, just tell me. I, Mo Gaohe, will do my best, Mo Gaohe said excitedly as he looked at the girl. She was Bai Xiaohong's maid, and many people in the frigid Immortal sect dreamed of her. Yuchen smiled faintly. Her attitude was completely different from when she was with Elder Qing Sheng. Her smile could topple cities. Senior brother Mo, I've heard a lot about you. Mo Gaohe's breathing quickened as he looked at Yuchen's pure yet beautiful face. This kind of beauty had attracted the entire frigid Immortal sect. It's my honor that Miss Yuchen contacted me. Yuchen smiled. Senior brother Mo, are you willing to do something for me? Please tell me, Miss Yuchen, Mo Gaohe said loudly, making his stance clear. Yuchen smiled. I'm Lin Jiangyi, a newcomer to the Yin Mountain district. My real name is Long Qi. There were no signs of human habitation in the dark, barren land. Occasionally, strange creatures would rush out of the ground before burying themselves underground again. Black birds flew in flocks in the sky, letting out terrifying cries. This was a wasteland in the Yin Mountain district. The area was very large, and this was only a corner of it. The originally calm wasteland became noisy because of a single person. A young man with his eyes closed walked on the dark, damp ground. A huge insect suddenly appeared from underground, and countless tentacles swept towards the man. The man's body swayed, easily dodging all the tentacles as if he could predict the insect's attack. The insect let out a strange hiss, causing the air to form a sawtooth wave that swept past the man and hit the ground. This was a sound wave attack, the insect's ultimate skill. It was always successful in this area, but it was useless against the man. The man raised his head slightly, then turned to look in another direction. Someone's coming. The insect's countless tentacles swept towards the man again, covering the sky. In the distance, a group of people riding on a huge flying bird was approaching. The leader was Mo Gaohe. Although the Yin Mountain district was a place for them to spend their days, they still had to do things such as patrolling. This was where Mo Gaohe's patrol. Captain, look. There's someone here. Someone exclaimed. Mo Gaohe looked down and saw the man with his eyes closed. With his eyes closed? Mo Gaohe and the others had no intention of making a move. They were not kind people and they preferred to watch the show. The man with his eyes closed stood in place without moving. An incomparable domain whizzed past and froze the tentacle in the air. Then it lifted the insect and crushed it. Green viscous substance sprinkled down from the sky. The man's expression did not change as he stood quietly in place. In the distant sky, Missouri Gaohe's eyes narrowed. What a powerful domain. This person was also a hunter, and the might of this domain was astonishing. Mo Gaohe then controlled his bird to land in front of the man. Who are you? Why did you come to the Yin Mountain district? Mo Gaohe asked. Behind him, a group of more than 10 people surrounded the man. Their eyes were vigilant. They had all seen the scene just now and were somewhat shocked. This person's strength far exceeded theirs. I want to join the humble class, the man said. Mo Gaohe's eyes narrowed. You can't just join the humble class whenever you want. The man replied, I know, let's give it a try. What's your name? Where are you from? Mo Gaohe asked. The man faced Mo Gaohe. My name is Invisible. I'm a wandering cultivator. Several hours later, the headquarters of the Yin Mountain district appeared in the distance. Mo Gaohe and Invisible stood together. Remember, as long as you help me complete this task, I guarantee that you won't need to go through the humble class to join the frigid Immortal sect. Invisible closed his eyes. I hope you keep your word. Mo Gaohe raised his head. As a disciple of the frigid Immortal sect, it's not a problem to recommend someone to join the sect's entrance examination. You're strong enough, so you'll definitely be able to join. Especially since this is an order from the junior ancestor. As long as you complete it, the junior ancestor will be happy and might even meet you. Countless people hope to have a chance to perform in front of the junior ancestor, and if you're lucky, you'll be able to reach the heavens in a single bound. Thank you very much, Invisible smiled. Mo Gaohe smiled even more happily. Miss Yuchen had contacted him and asked him to do this task. He had been looking for a suitable candidate all this time, and the fatty knew him like the back of his hand. It was impossible to hide anything from him. Fortunately, he had met a wandering cultivator who was very powerful and definitely much more powerful than Long Seven, who had disguised himself as Lin Jiangyi. Moreover, this wandering cultivator was determined to join the frigid immortal sect through the humble class. If this person hadn't wanted to join the frigid immortal sect, Mo Gaohe would have thought that Miss Yuqin had sent him to help him complete his task. This person's appearance was the best opportunity for him to complete his task. As they approached the headquarters of the Yin Mountain District, Mo Gaohe separated from Invisible Light and led the group back alone. He forbade his subordinates from telling anyone about Invisible Light and pretended that they had never seen this person. Invisible Light looked up at the headquarters of the Yin Mountain District. He hadn't expected things to go so smoothly. If he wanted to obtain an opportunity, he would have to join the Junior Ancestors faction and be led to the Sovereign Realm. Over the years, the Fifth Mainland had sent many people to this place, but very few had succeeded. Strength alone wasn't enough, and there were many who had been executed. If one wanted to obtain an opportunity, they would have to rely on luck, and Invisible Light's luck was quite good. As soon as he arrived at the Yin Mountain District, he found a nearby city and asked around. His luck was quite good, as he had coincidentally met two experts from the humble class who were on a mission. He had planned to head to the humble class and use the humble path to join the frigid immortal sect. With his strength, he had been able to attract the attention of the junior ancestor. He hadn't expected that he would have the opportunity to join the frigid immortal sect before even joining the humble class. It was difficult to determine a person's luck, and Invisible Light felt that his luck had become incomparably good after arriving in this region of space. It wasn't until he met the target that Mo Gaohe had given him, Long Seven, who was disguised as Lin Jiangyi, that he realized that his luck hadn't improved at all. Instead, it was this person in front of him who was truly lucky. This was Long Seven? What the hell? Wasn't this Lu Yin? Lu Yin stared blankly at this person who claimed to be a distant relative of the Linjiang clan. What the hell? Wasn't this Invisible Light? How had he become a distant relative of the Linjiang clan? Wait, why had Invisible Light appeared in this region of space? Had he replaced Lu Yin in the top 10? If that was the case, then Lu Yin's guess had been correct. This region of space was very likely where the top 10 were competing for opportunities. If that was the case, then was the Linjiang clan the fifth mainland spy in this region? Many thoughts flashed through Lu Yin's mind in an instant, and the joy of meeting an old friend in a foreign land was completely replaced. Curiosity and conjecture replaced it. Brother Linjiang, this person claims to be a distant relative of yours. He told everyone he met outside the headquarters, so I brought him here. Come identify him, the fatty said. Lu Yin coughed. You're a distant relative of my clan? How can you prove it? Invisible Light silently took out the proof that Mo Gaohe had given him, but before Lu Yin could even look at it, the fatty snatched it away and carefully examined it before handing it back to Lu Yin. There's nothing wrong with it. Lu Yin took a good look at it and then blinked. It really is. It seemed that the Linjiang clan really was the fifth mainland spy in this region, just like how the fifth mainland had arranged for Shenwu continent to be covered by the fifth mainland's clans. Alright, since you're a distant relative of the Linjiang clan, then you can stay here for now. I'll go check with fourth uncle and see if we can get this kid to join our humble class. This kid foolishly stood at the entrance and told everyone that he belonged to your clan. If I hadn't discovered him earlier, he would have been dead if Mo Gaohe had found out. The fatty was very enthusiastic. Lu Yin hurriedly expressed his gratitude. This fatty had always been like this to his own people, and he would never refuse help if he could. It was said that this was also the reason why he had been thrown here. Otherwise, with his strength, he would not have been treated as a hedonistic son of a rich family. After the fatty left, Lu Yin and Invisible Light sat down across from each other. You replaced me in the top 10? Lu Yin asked. Invisible Light retorted. You impersonated Long Seven? Lu Yin's eyes flashed. You know Long Seven? Looks like someone wants to harm me and they just happened to find you. I guessed wrong. The Linjiang clan isn't a spy from the fifth mainland. Who found you? Invisible Light smiled. Mo Gaohe. Lu Yin was not surprised. That's fast. How did he want to harm me? The Huayun domain is south of the Yin Mountain District, and there's also a humble class there. There's a family in the Huayun domain with the surname Zhu. There's a traitor in this family who's known as a spy. Emo Gauha wanted me to pass this information to you as a gift for finding the main family. He also hopes that you can use this gift to get me to join the Yin Mountain District. Lu Yin was puzzled. What does he mean by passing this information to me? Does he want me to expose the Zhou family? That should be the case. Lu Yin continued, unless the information is false, then I'll be offending the Zhou family. However, they're just a small family and offending them is meaningless. But if the information is true and Emo Gauha knows about it, then the higher-ups must know even more. Why haven't they done anything? There should be some sort of setup, and this Zhou family might be a bait for someone to use to catch a big fish. Invisible Light smiled. The Huayuan Domain. Lu Yin nodded. The Zhou family was located in the Huayuan Domain south of the Yin Mountain District, and the Huayuan Domain also had a humble class. If the Zhou family really is a pawn that the humble Huayuan Domain deliberately didn't capture, then I'll expose them and directly offend the humble Huayuan Domain. But offending them is one thing, and I'll still be able to capture a human traitor, so I'll only be rewarded. There's definitely a second step, but I don't know the specifics. He won't tell me all at once, but offending the humble Huayuan Domain is definitely a bait. If the plan succeeds, then your fate will most likely be caused by them. Lu Yin tapped his fingers on the table. He knew about the humble Huayuan Domain, and the sect leader was called Guan Tong. He was a ruthless person who had made countless contributions and was the complete opposite of Zhou Xian. More importantly, he had two brothers, Guan Hai and Guan Yun. They were known as the three heroes of the Huayuan Domain. Both Guan Tong and Guan Hai were envoys, and they were the top of the 9 gates of the Central Realm. Chapter 1368. After offending the humble Huayuan school, Lu Yin's days in the humble school would not be easy. Emo Gauha could casually list out a crime, and if the humble school of the Huayuan school opened their mouth, even if Lu Yin didn't die, he would lose a layer of skin. With Emo Gauha's ability, it was impossible for him to obtain information on the Bamboo family. It must have been by Xiaohong from the frigid Immortal sect. Lu Yin was in the humble school and his status was different. He could not be directly assassinated, nor could he use boundless assassins. The only way was to deal with him within the humble school's rules, and the best way was to make him bear some sort of crime and be expelled from the humble school. Even if he did not die, the White Dragon clan's son-in-law would become a laughingstock in the top realm and even the Void of Trees. Long she had allowed Lu Yin to join the humble school to protect him, but this had its pros and cons. I didn't expect you to come here early and even become a member of the White Dragon clan, Invisible Light said, his tone full of amazement. He rarely felt this emotional, and Lu Yin's experience was miraculous. Lu Yin smiled wryly. I didn't want to either. Look, there are people in the humble school that I have to deal with. If I'm not careful, I might die. You're very lucky that Emo Gauha found me. If he had found someone else, you might have fallen into his trap. After all, your identity as a member of the Riverside clan was fake, and you couldn't tell that he was a relative of the Riverside clan. He even had to admit that it was real, and he set you up step by step. Lu Yin nodded. Emo Gauha was definitely not the one who had schemed against him, and even if he did not have the ability to do so. Lu Yin was now curious about what Emo Gauha's next step would be. Since he knew about Emo Gauha's scheme, Lu Yin was no longer worried. No matter what he did, he could not avoid Invisible Light. At least Lu Yin did not think that Invisible Light would help him. If the opportunity lies in this region of space, then what exactly is it? Lu Yin changed the topic. Invisible Light replied, Elder Chan is talking about the origin item. Lu Yin was confused. Invisible Light pointed above him. This region of space was born from a tree, and at the top of this tree is the sovereign realm. There are many things left behind from ancient times, and one of them is the origin item. It's said that breaking through to the progenitor realm requires the origin item. Lu Yin understood. That's why this is the opportunity to break through to the progenitor realm. Back then, the 5th mainland sky was changed by the 6th mainland. Even though Elder Chan and the others had an origin item, they were unable to break through to the progenitor realm. They had the ability to change the sky, but for various reasons they kept delaying it. Today things have changed. Elder Chan and the others all have an origin item, and they have an opportunity to break through to the progenitor realm. As for us, we're the ones fighting for the origin item, Invisible Light said. To this part of the universe, we're illegal immigrants. Long Tian had once told Long Shi that after the previous origin wheel ceremonies, There would often be stowaways from the abandoned lands who would mix in with their group and head to the sovereign realm. That was why he wanted Long Shi to go with him. He wanted to find a reliable teammate which would give him the opportunity to join the humble school. He never thought that he would be able to enter the humble class thanks to the stowaways of the fifth mainland. You want to get close to the junior ancestor that was confirmed after the origin wheel ceremony and follow him to the sovereign realm? Meng Guang was surprised. You seem to know quite a lot. How did you find out so quickly? I accidentally overheard it, Lu Yin said. Meng Guang nodded. The origin wheel ceremony of the mother tree confirmed the junior ancestor, and only the junior ancestor is qualified to lead a group to the sovereign realm. Since ancient times, there have always been people who have stowaways and mixed in with the junior ancestors group. We are the most outstanding geniuses of the fifth mainland, and even if we can't compare to the junior ancestor, we are still strong enough to challenge him. As long as we have enough strength, we won't have to worry about anything. Lu Yin believed this as Long Shi's strength had been acknowledged by Long Tian. Long Shi's strength was on the same level as Wang Yi and Wu Taibai's, and if they were placed in the top 5 of the sovereign realm, they could not compare to Lu Yin and Xianxia. The gap between them and the rest of the top 10 wasn't too great either, so Meng Guang and the others were definitely worthy of the junior ancestors' attention. What about the others? Lu Yin asked. Meng Guang shook her head. We're scattered. We can't be caught in one fell swoop. Suddenly Lu Yin thought of something important. When did you find out about us coming to this part of the universe? Does Wang Yi know? Meng Guang shook her head. He doesn't know. We only found out before we came. Why, did Wang Yi come early as well? He's originally from this part of the universe and he's from the Wang family, Lu Yin said solemnly. Meng Guang's heart sank as he had not changed his name. The moment Wang Yi heard his name it would be over. Fortunately he was heavily injured by the Neo-Human Alliance, so he probably won't appear for the next 10 years. He has no fate with the sovereign realm, Lu Yin said. Meng Guang heaved a sigh of relief. You should have told me this earlier. He had been startled. But if Wang Yi can go to the fifth mainland, then it seems like the Wang family has a passage to the fifth mainland. That's not a good thing. How do you plan on returning? Lu Yin asked. Meng Guang gave Lu Yin an address. Gather here. Lu Yin understood. He still had many questions but he could not get answers from Meng Guang. Do you know how this part of the universe describes the fifth mainland? Meng Guang answered seriously, abandoned land. Lu Yin nodded. He had more or less guessed why the fifth mainland hated the primeval surnames so much. It was because they had abandoned them. Is the Hall of Honor unable to help you in this part of the universe? Meng Guang was helpless. Things have changed. The origin wheel sacrifice is a ceremony for every epoch. Do you know how long an epoch is? Lu Yin pursed his lips. That was too long ago and according to his calculations, Elder Chan and the others were not young anymore. It was no wonder that the Hall of Honor was unable to help them in this part of the universe. Anything could happen in such a long time. Perhaps the organization that the Hall of Honor had arranged in this part of the universe had already been discovered and was waiting for them. If you can't scheme against me, then how are you going to use Mo Gauha to enter the frigid immortal sect? Lu Yin asked. Meng Guang was helpless. Man proposes but God disposes. There's no other way. I can't just sell you out. What about you? Don't you want to go to the sovereign realm? Lu Yin thought about it. Even if I want to go, I need to think of a way. I'm just a son-in-law who needs protection. On the other side, the white fatty happily found Lu Yin and patted his chest. Brother Riverface, fourth uncle gave you a lot of face. What's the name of this relative of yours? Not what? Meng Guang. Yes, Meng Guang can join my Yin Mountain district. You don't know this, but I spent a lot of effort persuading him. Thankfully, I'm also a captain in the Yin Mountain district and have some prestige. Meng Guang officially joined the humble school and joined the fatties team to follow Lu Yin. Mo Gauha watched coldly from the side. Every time they met they would mock each other and he did not treat Lu Yin well. He had never interacted with Meng Guang before, not even making eye contact. However, it was impossible for anyone to make eye contact with Meng Guang, so Mo Gauha simply closed his eyes. Ah, Mo Gauha, look at how strong my team is, isn't it? Look at you, you're just a little kitten. The fatty was very pleased with himself, and he chose the routes that Mo Gauha often took to ridicule him. Mo Gauha sneered. Fatty, don't be so smug. The more you laugh now, the harder you'll cry in the future. Ha, I'm laughing. Ha, Mo Gaohe, you're the one who's going to cry. Ha. Mo Gaohe did not want to bother with the fatty as he was most concerned about Lu Yin. He glanced over. Draconic 7? The son-in-law of the White Dragon clan? When he thought of this, the killing intent in his eyes grew even stronger. As a disciple of the frigid Immortal sect, he had tried his best to woo Wang Yun, hoping to reach the heavens in a single step. He had even come to the infamous Yin Mountain region for this, but this guy had actually married one of the most dazzling pearls in the Peak Realm. However, his good days had come to an end, and it would not be long before this brat and this fatty cried together. Mo Gaohe was in a good mood, but he still pretended to be gloomy. Sco. Ha 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 ha. The fatty was still laughing. Lu Yin looked at the fatty as if he was looking at an idiot. This was a pure fatty who did not know anything and was as clean as a sheet of white paper. Even after Invisible joined, Lu Yin was still the same as before. Fatty Bai would occasionally bring him to Yinshan City to have fun. Fatty Bai was depressed to find that Invisible Light was the same as Lu Yin. She did not have much interest in beauties, and her answer made him even more worried. Meng Guang's answer was, cultivators have to be calm and not be disturbed by external matters. Meng Guang's gaze was strange and he was even more pretentious than Lu Yin. Meng Guang's eyes were closed and he acted like a thief. Those who did not know better would think that he was a peerless expert. Even Lu Yin was confused by Meng Guang's answer, but then again this guy really was like that. In order to cultivate his domain he had lived with his eyes closed for so many years. He was quite ruthless. Half a month passed peacefully and the fatty was very happy. In his own words, the Yin Mountain region had never been so peaceful for so long. He and Mo Gaohe would quarrel and fight every few days, and Mo Gaohe would avoid him whenever he saw him. This was all because of Lu Yin and Meng Guang's addition. Thus he had been wantonly treating everyone to a meal and acting all high and mighty. The Yin Mountain region was even more horrifying at night, and there were all sorts of strange creatures underground. Some were wriggling, some were entrenched, and some were running. Meng Guang appeared in a depression, and not long after, Mo Gaohe appeared as well. That Long 7 didn't notice anything wrong, right? Meng Guang replied, don't worry, he's convinced. Mo Gaohe sneered. He's a fake himself, so of course he wouldn't suspect anyone else. He then paused. Does he still not intend to expose the Zhou family? Meng Guang shook his head. When I told him, he said that he shouldn't meddle in other people's business. The White Dragon clan told him to stay out of trouble for a few months, and when the time comes, they'll give him battle contributions and let him retire. Retire with battle contributions? Dream on. Fine, if he wants battle contributions so badly, then we'll give them to him, Mo Gaohe mocked. 2 hours later, Meng Guang appeared in Lu Yin's room. Give me battle contributions? Is that what he said? Lu Yin was puzzled. Meng Guang replied, yes. Thank you for your support, brothers. Thank you for your support, thank you. Chapter 1369. Lu Yin was puzzled. Even if I offended others, no one can do anything to me with the White Dragon clan behind me. I'm not even afraid of the frigid Immortal sect, so no one can threaten me. If that's the case, why give me the credit? Suddenly he thought of something and spoke up at the same time as Invisible Light. Falsely claim credit. The humble school has a lot of authority, and because of that there are even more rules. The punishment for breaking the rules is severe, and the most severe punishment is falsely claiming credit. Invisible Light continued. First you have to expose the Zhou family and offend the humble school of Huayun. Then they'll report you for falsely claiming credit. The Guan brothers won't let you off even without the frigid Immortal sect's intervention. Even if the White Dragon clan intervenes, you'll be banished from the humble school. Lu Yin felt a chill run down his spine. How ruthless. If it were anyone else, I might have fallen for their trap. So what if I didn't expose the Zhou family? Mo Gaohe definitely has a way to force the credit onto me and then expose me. He'll announce that I was the one who discovered the Zhou family spy, and I'll still offend the Guan brothers. No matter what, I won't be able to escape this trap. Invisible Light praised. The person who set this trap is very meticulous. Even if there are unforeseen circumstances, he'll still be able to adapt to the situation. You won't be able to escape no matter what. Amazing. Lu Yin wasn't in the mood to praise others. There was such a ruthless person plotting against him in the dark. He had escaped this time because of invisible light, but what about the next time? The person who had set this trap would definitely not let him off so easily. Who could it be? Bai Xiaohong? That shouldn't be the case. Bai Xiaohong was the junior ancestor and wouldn't have the energy to do such things. Who could it be? Either way, it had to be someone from the frigid Immortal sect. If he wanted to know who it was, he would have to start with Mo Gaohe. Try to find out who's behind Mo Gaohe. I want to know who's plotting against me, Lu Yin said. Invisible Light replied, it'll be difficult. Mo Gaohe is vicious and tight-lipped. It won't be easy to get information out of him, and he might even see through it. The only thing we can do now is to deal with him as soon as he makes his second move. Let's get rid of him first. Lu Yin thought about it and agreed. Mo Gaohe was like a stepping stone placed by the enemy to attack. If he didn't get rid of this stepping stone, the enemy could set up a new trap at any time. He had to get rid of Mo Gaohe, or at least ensure that there were no enemies in the Yin Mountain district that were targeting him. The only thing he could do now was wait for Mo Gaohe to make his move. Another half a month quickly passed, and one day the cloud connection stone on Lu Yin's wrist vibrated. The cloud communication stone was given to him by Long Shi to facilitate communication. In this part of space, cloud communication stones were not as common as gadgets. Only a few people had them. Long Shi's image appeared before his eyes. She was still as beautiful as ever. Her aqua blue hair was still dazzling and her amber eyes were full of charm. How have you been? Long Shi asked. She had been very worried about Lu Yin for the past month, not because she liked him, but because she was worried that the frigid Immortal sect would make a move on him. Lu Yin didn't tell her about Mo Gaohe's plot against him, as it would only make her more worried. He also couldn't explain his invisibility status, and if she became too worried she might ask Long Tian to arrange for him to be sent to another place. Then he would have to start all over again. Here he could rely on his invisibility to predict the enemy's movements and ensure his own safety. It's fine, nothing much. I just go to the Yin Mountain with Fatty Bai Wang Dashui. He'll protect me when I wander around the city, Lu Yin said. Long Shi frowned. Stay away from Wang Dashui as well. He's very simple-minded and can be easily manipulated. This was the truth, so Lu Yin nodded. Right, got it. Long Shi looked at Lu Yin for a while, but she didn't have anything else to say. Be careful for now. Bai Xiaohong won't be able to make a move on you, so don't cause any trouble. I'll urge Big Brother to give you contribution points as soon as possible. Once you retire you'll be safe. Remember, don't cause any trouble. Don't worry, I'm very well behaved. Long Shi looked at him one more time before her image disappeared. Lu Yin looked outside and saw that the sky was gloomy. Fatty Bai had led a team out on patrol and would only return in 2 days. Lu Yin couldn't go out casually either, as he didn't want to be provoked by Mo Gaohe and expose himself unnecessarily. Right, it's time to roll his die. The best way to deepen his understanding of this region of space was to read someone's memories, and there was nothing more convenient than rolling 6 pips. However, if he wanted to integrate his memories into someone's body, he couldn't have too many star essences. With that in mind, he entered a secret room. Everyone had a secret training room in their room. He set his cosmic ring aside and took out 1,000 star essences. He raised his hand, causing the die to appear and spin slowly. Lu Yin tapped it, causing it to spin rapidly before slowly coming to a stop. 3 pips and 2 screens of light appeared. Lu Yin pursed his lips. Now wasn't the time to upgrade external items, and there was nothing to upgrade anyway. He restored the die with star crystals and tapped it again. This time it was 1 pip and a piece of metal fell out. It was quite tough, but Lu Yin still crushed it in his hands. This metal was strong enough to be a hunter's weapon, and it would be valuable to many people. Unfortunately, it was useless to him. Lu Yin rolled his die again and his wish came true this time. 6 pips appeared and he found himself in that strange black space. Balls of light flickered one after another, and Lu Yin immediately found the closest one to him and merged with it. The next moment his body trembled and the scene in front of him changed. He appeared high up in the sky and below him was a burning sea of fire. Countless people were wailing from within, accompanied by cries of despair. Beside him was a man whose aura made Lu Yin's scalp go numb. It was an envoy. As the memories flooded in, Lu Yin's mouth fell open and he looked down at his hands. What heaven-defying luck! He had actually merged with Guan Yun's body. A month ago he had been discussing Mo Gaoha's scheme with Meng Guang, which had involved the three Guan brothers from the humble school of Huayuan. He hadn't expected to merge with Guan Yun's body in less than a month. Guan Yun was a powerhouse with a power level of more than 400,000, and he was extremely close to becoming an envoy. It was no wonder why he was so suitable for Lu Yin. There wasn't much of a difference between their power levels. The person beside him was Guan Yun's second brother, Guan Hai, who was also a true envoy. They were currently wrapping up a mission and there was a human traitor in one of their families. The humble school had determined that the traitor had been exterminated. More and more memories flooded in, and Lu Yin learned that the top realm and middle realm were both on the front side of the mother tree. There was also the back side of the mother tree, which was the largest battlefield in the cosmic tree. Their opponents were all monsters with scarlet vertical eyes and there were countless of them. Neo-Human Alliance. Lu Yin hadn't expected these monsters to be the greatest enemies of the cosmic tree. Just like the fifth mainland, these monsters had also planted traitors among the humans. However, unlike the fifth mainland, the monsters in this part of the universe were all hidden. On the other hand, the Neo-Human Alliance existed in the fifth mainland. Lu Yin finally understood. The humble school was the equivalent of the fifth mainland's Hall of Honor, and the four cardinal scales was the equivalent of the Hall of Honor. Lu Yin had joined the interstellar court. As more memories flooded in, Lu Yin's understanding of this part of the universe increased. Suddenly his heart trembled as he discovered a huge secret. Guan Yun was actually a traitor. Second brother. Lu Yin's body trembled and he looked at Guan Hai beside him. Guan Hai was puzzled. "What's wrong, second brother?" Lu Yin shook his head and replied in a hoarse voice, "Nothing." Guan Hai frowned. "You must be tired. You've been out on many missions, so go back and rest after this one. Big brother has something to talk to you about." "Alright," Lu Yin agreed. Suddenly the scene in front of him changed again and he returned to that strange, dark place. He then returned to his own body and opened his eyes. They were filled with intense shock and he hurriedly memorized a few names. These were all traitors that Guan Yun had planted. Who would have thought that Guan Yun, the third most powerful person in the humble school of Huayuan, was actually a traitor? Who would have thought that he would openly root out traitors? If Guan Yun was a traitor, then what about Guan Hai and Guan Tong? Lu Yin felt that it was a pity that he didn't have enough star essence, so he couldn't stay here longer. Otherwise he would have been able to see more of Guan Yun's memories. However, if he had more star essence he might not have been able to fuse with Guan Yun, and he might have ended up somewhere even further away. His thoughts were complicated and he recorded down all of the traitors that he had learned about from Guan Yun's memories. There were quite a few densely packed names, and if he submitted this list and it was verified he would definitely be rewarded greatly. He might even be summoned by the superintendent of the 9 gates of the central realm. The superintendent of the 9 gates was named Qing Chen and he was a super powerhouse. Lu Yin wasn't sure exactly how strong he was, but he definitely surpassed someone like Master Yuan and might even be on the same level as the fifth mainland's interstellar tribunal. The governor of the humble school was rumored to be a progenitor who was extremely stubborn and overprotective. Besides these, Guan Yun's memories also contained information about the Zhou family. Just as Ming Guang had said, there was a human traitor within the Zhou family who had been hiding for decades. However, there was one difference. This spy was not a bait that the 3 Guan brothers had set up to catch the big fish. The traitor had been planted by Guan Yun, and he had only been exposed by coincidence. Guan Yun still wanted to use him for some other things. Lu Yin organized his thoughts and sucked in a cold breath. The people behind Mo Gaoha only knew that the traitor had been planted by the 3 Guan brothers. Even so, if Lu Yin exposed the traitor he would fall into that person's trap and offend the 3 Guan brothers. Furthermore, this traitor was of great use to Guan Yun, and if Lu Yin exposed him he would not just offend 1 star. Guan Yun probably wanted to kill Lu Yin even in his dreams. This was too ruthless. If not for Ming Guang, Lu Yin might have actually fallen for the trap and become a chess piece for someone else to toy with. Lu Yin rubbed his head, but right now the initiative was in his hands. If he could think of a way to drag the person behind Mo Gaoha down with him, that would be perfect. Lu Yin looked up at the dusky sky. He had not expected that even though he had concealed his identity in this part of the universe, there would still be endless conflicts. The next day Ming Guang came looking for Lu Yin. Mo Gaoha has made his move. Chapter 1370. Lu Yin trembled. With Guan Yun's memories, he was even more cautious about Mo Gaohe's plans. Neither Mo Gaohe nor the people behind him had expected the bamboo family to be so important to Guan Yun. "He wants me to lure you to a place," Invisible Light said. "What place?" Lu Yin asked. She took out a map of the Yin Mountain district from her cosmic ring and pointed. "Here." Lu Yin looked over and saw that it was the area that Mo Gaohe was patrolling. Today Mo Gaohe was patrolling the area and his goal was obvious. Mo Gaohe's plan was to cooperate with Obscurus and put Lu Yin in an extremely passive position. What does he want? Lu Yin was puzzled. Invisible Light shook her head. He didn't say. "I don't know." Lu Yin didn't suspect her, but he wasn't worried either. This region was just as wary of the Fifth Mainland stowaways as the human traders. If Invisible Light dared to betray Lu Yin, then he would be dragged down as well. This had been confirmed the moment they recognized each other. Otherwise, Lu Yin wouldn't have trusted Lu Yin so much. Even if Lu Yin's plan had failed because of Lu Yin still had to protect himself. This was why Lu Yin had said that Lu Yin was lucky. Lu Yin had no choice but to help Lu Yin, and he was also involved in the situation. Half a day later, Lu Yin followed Invisible Light to the place he had agreed to meet with Mo Gaohe. It was a dark and damp canyon with a strange black wind blowing down below. The two stood at the edge of the canyon. "He wants me to lure you down to a cave in the canyon wall." "What's the reason?" Lu Yin asked. "The human trader's whereabouts." Lu Yin nodded. This was indeed what he needed right now. Long Shi's plan had been for him to retire with some contributions, but if he could get some now, he could retire early and enjoy his life better. The people behind Mo Gaohe had put in a lot of effort to deal with him. The human trader should be down there. Invisible Light's expression suddenly froze. Mo Gaohe sent a message. Lu Yin pretended not to know. "He wants me to go down there and kill that person. Then he'll give you the credit. Then he'll have you expose me in front of the headquarters and expose the fact that I've faked my contributions. At the same time, he'll also expose the fact that I've discovered the traitor in the Zhou family. I've offended the 3 Guan brothers and even faked my contributions. Even if I can make up for it with my contributions, the 3 Guan brothers won't let me off." Invisible Light didn't deny it. "Let's go," Lu Yin said as he jumped down and followed. After they left, Mo Gaohe and a few others watched coldly from afar. His lips curled up as he said, "Long Qi is it? Today I'll destroy your reputation and make the White Dragon clan the laughingstock of the 4 directions scale." The edges of the canyon were damp, and from time to time disgusting and sinister-looking insects would poke their heads out, only to be wiped out by Lu Yin. Not long after, they found a cave. Inside the cave lay an unconscious man. Lu Yin immediately recognized this person as a traitor from the bamboo family. His eyes narrowed as he thought about Mo Gaohe's schemes, but he hadn't expected them to capture the traitor just to save him the trouble. They didn't even need to expose him. Lu Yin had to clarify the situation himself. Otherwise, he would be accused of indiscriminate murder. It was normal for people to die in the world of cultivation. If no one investigated the matter, everything would be fine. However, the Zhou family was different. Although they were a small family, they were influential. The bamboo family was influential. Invisible Light attacked from the side, but Lu Yin didn't stop her. It was better to save trouble and hasten Mo Gaohe's death. Invisible Light killed the traitor with a single strike. At that moment, a sound came from outside the cave and Lu Yin and Invisible Light exchanged glances. Mo Gaohe led the way into the cave, followed by a few others. He immediately saw Lu Yin and Invisible Light as well as the traitor lying on the ground. "What are you doing, Lin Jiangyi?" Mo Gaohe barked, and the people behind him stared at the two. Lu Yin didn't panic and even pretended to be pleased. "What do you mean, what am I doing?" Mo Gaohe pointed at the corpse. "Did you kill him?" Lu Yin was even more pleased with himself, but he didn't admit it. Mo Gaohe didn't need him to admit it. Killing a human traitor was a merit that couldn't be ignored. "Do you know who he is?" "He's the young master of the Huayuan bamboo family. The bamboo family has quite a bit of influence in Huayuan and has a good reputation. They have a good relationship with the humble school's sect master and have provided us with many resources." "You actually dared to kill him? Come capture him." Invisible Light spoke up. "Our young master killed him because—" "Shut up, I'm from the Riverside family and a humble family. Captain Emo wouldn't dare do anything to me, Lu Yin shouted, fully acting like a family member who was trying to hide his true motive for killing the traitor for fear that someone would steal his merit. If this situation hadn't been set up by Emo Gauha, then Lu Yin's actions would have been normal. He had killed the traitor, and when Emo Gauha brought him to the headquarters for interrogation, the results would have been just as he had expected. Not only was he not guilty, but he had also contributed greatly. If he revealed that the traitor was the traitor, then Emo Gauha might steal his merit. Emo Gauha sneered inwardly. He still wanted to hide his merit? This was for the best. The more Lu Yin tried to hide it, the more it proved that he firmly believed in this merit. Take him away. Emo Gauha barked. Lu Yin was grabbed by two commoners and brought back to the headquarters in the Yin Mountain district. The corpse of the bamboo family member was taken away as well. Invisible light silently followed behind and returned to the headquarters in the Yin Mountain district. Not long after, the headquarters in the Yin Mountain district boiled over. This place didn't have any missions all year round, let alone murder disputes. Everyone here was a good-for-nothing, so why not just stick to their old profession? Why did they have to take the risk and go on missions? Today, however, Emo Gauha had actually captured Lin Jiangyi and claimed that he had killed someone from the Huayun bamboo family. Fatty Bai rushed back as soon as he received the news. The moment he saw Emo Gauha, he started cursing at him. Emo Gauha was not to be outdone. He vented all the grievances he had been holding in during this period of time. The two of them cursed at each other for a full 20 minutes. Only when Zhou Xian appeared did everyone calm down. Zhou Xian had a headache and looked down at the corpse of the bamboo family member. What happened? Emo Gauha stepped forward and shouted, "Sect Master, this person is the son of the Huayun bamboo family, Zhu Qing. He was just found dead at the hands of Lin Jiangyi, but he doesn't seem to have any regrets about killing him." The white fatty grew anxious. "Fourth, no, Sect Master, this must be Emo Gauha's doing. Please investigate." Lu Yin was still being held captive by Emo Gauha's subordinates. Zhou Xian glanced at him and waved his hand. "Come up and explain." Lu Yin was released and walked forward. Just as he was about to speak, a shout came from outside. "Who dares kill someone from the bamboo family?" The voice came from afar, but it arrived in an instant, shaking the void and causing it to distort and churn like waves. Everyone was shocked. This was an emissary. Zhou Xian frowned and tapped the void with his finger, suppressing the churning space. A figure tore through the void and descended. This was the symbol of an emissary in this region of space. The newcomer was a middle-aged man who stood tall in the sky with a domineering aura about him. His sharp gaze swept across the crowd, making them feel as if their faces had been scraped by a knife. It was abnormally uncomfortable and no one dared to look him in the eye. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed when he saw the man, Guan Tong. He hadn't expected him to come. Suddenly, he looked at Emo Gauha and saw that the man's eyes were filled with glee and schadenfreude. It seemed that Guan Tong's arrival had not been an accident. It had been a coincidence that the people from the bamboo family had been left in a cave in the canyon, and Guan Tong's arrival had been part of the scheme of the people behind Emo Gauha. If Lu Yin had fallen for their trap, he would have definitely been thrown into the abyss. Emo Gauha sighed inwardly. Miss Yuchen's plan was flawless. She had gotten Long Seven to admit that he had killed Zhu Qing and exposed her as a traitor, which would directly offend Guan Tong, the sect master of the Huayuan sect. Then Guan Tong had arranged for someone to come out and accuse Long Seven of stealing the credit. Even if Long Seven had discovered that Zhu Qing was a traitor, it wouldn't have been enough to completely offset his crime of falsely claiming credit. Long Seven had exposed Zhu Qing as a traitor and offended Guan Tong, so Guan Tong would definitely make this crime worse. Zhou Xian would not let him off so easily in front of Guan Tong. His merits would offset his faults, and Long Seven would at least be banished from the humble classes. Miss Yuchen would definitely have other plans for what to do when the time came, and even if she hadn't acted, Guan Tong would not have let Long Seven off. On the other hand, Emo Gauha had helped Miss Yuchen enter the eyes of the junior ancestor, and he had even dealt a blow to that fatty. It was perfect. Thinking about all of this, Emo Gauha felt like he was suffocating and he wanted to vent it all out. He felt that every step he had taken had fully demonstrated his intelligence, and he would definitely be able to appear in front of the junior ancestor and even become his trusted aide. His status in the frigid Immortal sect would also greatly increase, and he would no longer need to curry favor with Wang Yun. As for that fatty, he had long since been left in the dust. Sect Master Zhou, why did someone from my Huayuan Zhou family die in your Yin Mountain district? You must give me an explanation. Guantong barked. His tone was rather unpleasant and he didn't give Shuixi any face at all. Everyone in the Central Plain realm knew of Shuixi's style. He was a retired man who posed no threat at all. Shuixi rubbed his ears and looked at Lu Yin helplessly. Tell me what happened. Mo Gaohe looked at Lu Yin and screamed inwardly, admit it. Then expose Zhu Qing as a traitor and be proud of yourself. This moment is the peak of your life and it is also the turning point of your fate. Lu Yin faced everyone's gazes and he glanced at Mo Gaohe's smug expression. He raised a hand and pointed at Mo Gaohe. He killed that person. Mo Gaohe was stunned and so were everyone else. Guantong's sharp gaze landed on Mo Gaohe. Mo Gaohe was at a loss. This wasn't part of the script. What did it have to do with him? There shouldn't be any connection at all. What did you say? Mo Gaohe looked at Lu Yin blankly. Lu Yin seriously explained, you were the one who killed that person from the Zhu family and threw his corpse in the cave. You tricked me into falsely claiming the battle credit. I, Lin Jiangyi, am an upright person and I would never falsely claim someone else's battle credit. Mo Gaohe almost spat out blood and his eyes widened in anger. Bullshit. I'm not your father, so why would I give you the battle credit? You killed someone from the Zhu family, so what kind of bullshit battle credit is that? Chapter 1371. When he heard Mo Gaohe's excuses, Lu Yin waved his hand. Invisible Light walked out and bowed to Shuixi and Guantong. Greetings, sect masters. Shuixi nodded casually and Guantong grunted in acknowledgement before staring at Invisible Light. This person had surprised him as he had closed his eyes. Either he was born with a disability, or one of his abilities had reached the limit of his current realm and needed to be suppressed at a certain price. Mo Gaohe had a bad feeling when he saw Invisible Light walk out. Sect masters, this is the evidence that Zhu Qing is a traitor to humanity. It came from Captain Mo Gaohe. Invisible Light took out all the evidence that Mo Gaohe had given him. Mo Gaohe's vision darkened and he almost fainted. Guantong's eyes flashed with a murderous intent, but it disappeared in a flash. He waved his hand and all the evidence appeared before him. The frigid Immortal sect naturally wouldn't be wrong in collecting evidence. Shuixi's expression improved. Yes, that's right. Zhu Qing is a traitor to humanity. He then looked at Lu Yin strangely. Did you know that he was a traitor? Lu Yin respectfully replied, yes. Is this what you meant by falsely claiming credit? Shuixi asked. Lu Yin replied, yes. For some reason Captain Mo Gaohe hates this subordinate, and he specifically captured the traitor Zhu Qing from Huayuan. He then arranged for Invisible Light to take this subordinate away and use Invisible Light's mouth to get this subordinate to falsely claim the battle achievements. If it weren't for Invisible Light's upright character who couldn't stand such underhanded methods, this subordinate wouldn't have been willing to do such a thing. Invisible Light continued, Captain Mo Gaohe just happened to appear the moment Zhu Qing died. He even told me to attack Zhu Qing again to ensure that the credit would go to me. Then I would expose him in front of Sect Master. Everyone present was smart, and with Invisible Light's explanation, Mo Gaohe's scheme was revealed to everyone. The white fatty immediately jumped out. Wow, Mo Gaohe, you're willing to spend so much just to deal with me? Do you really care that much about me being a threat to you? Scram. Mo Gaohe roared at the white fatty. His eyes were filled with hatred as he glared at Dim Light. Nonsense. If that's the case, why didn't I keep the contribution points for myself? Why did you get them instead? Invisible Light straightened her back. This is the price you had to pay for luring me into dealing with Lin Jiangyi. You said that you wanted me to join the humble class because of my military achievements. Mo Gaohe almost coughed up blood. The other party's words were completely reasonable. Nonsense, I don't even know you. Invisible Light replied seriously, please investigate this matter, Sect Master. When this lowly one was traveling in the Yin Mountain region, it was Captain Mo Gaohe who discovered this lowly one. He promised this lowly one that this lowly one would be able to join the humble class, but this lowly one has a sense of righteousness in his heart and is unwilling to be used by Captain Shuixi had a strange expression on his face. What righteousness was there in the Yin Mountain District headquarters? Why did it sound so strange? Sect Master Zhou, congratulations. Your subordinates are very capable. Not only were they able to find the traitor in my Huayuan's Zhou clan, but they also worked hard to bring them here. They took the opportunity to eliminate their dissidents and support their own people. It's killing several birds with one stone. Congratulations, Guantong said word by word. Even an idiot could hear the anger in his voice. Mo Gaohe couldn't argue. What could he say? Could he say that the Zhou clan was a chess piece that the three Guan brothers had set up for many years? If he dared to say that, he would die even faster. Not to mention he still had the merit of exposing the traitor in the Zhou clan, so he wouldn't be punished too much for framing a fellow disciple. However, he had thoroughly offended Guantong. More importantly, this wasn't his plan at all. It was Yu Qin, the junior ancestor, and it had nothing to do with him. He was just a disciple of the cold Immortal sect who wanted to marry the daughter of an influential family and reach the heavens in a single step. Mo Gaohe's resentment towards invisible light was expressed on his face, and there was even blood at the corner of his mouth. Zhou Xian was helpless and rubbed his head. I've made a fool of myself in front of sect master. I really don't want to see my subordinates fighting amongst themselves. Guantong snorted and stared coldly at Mo Gaohe. Although finding the traitor is a merit, framing a fellow disciple is a great taboo. This kind of person is not suitable to stay in the humble class. Sect Master Zhou, what do you think? Mo Gaohe's face paled when he heard this. It was over. Miss Yu Qin had thought of a way to lure Guantong in order to completely expel Long Seven from the humble class. She hadn't thought that Guantong would be the cause of his death. Sect Master, this matter still needs to be investigated in detail. I've been wronged and I definitely didn't frame a fellow disciple. Please give me a chance, Mo Gaohe hurriedly quibbled. He couldn't be expelled from the Yin Mountain district, or else his life would be over. He would become the laughingstock of the entire cold Immortal sect, and even the sect's reputation would be tarnished. Once that happened, what awaited him would be a miserable fate. The white fatty was pleased with himself. Mo Gaohe, you've spent so much just to deal with me. Only you could think of something like that. You're really stupid. You discovered the traitor in the Zhou clan and immediately reported it to the sect, and you'll have enough merit to surpass me. Unfortunately, you've given up the only chance in your life to defeat me. Mo Gaohe was furious. Shut up, damn fatty. What qualifications do you have to be my opponent? The one I want to deal with is Lin Jiangyi. Ba Long 7. Everyone was stunned. The white fatty was confused. What Long 7? Mo Gaohe gritted his teeth and pointed at Lu Yin. This guy isn't from the Linjiang clan and he's not called Lin Jiangyi. He's Long 7, the son-in-law of the White Dragon clan. He married the princess of the White Dragon clan and is envied by countless people in the top realm. He's Long 7. Everyone stared at Lu Yin in disbelief. Even Guantong and Zhou Xian were shocked. This guy was Long 7? Lu Yin shrugged as he knew that he couldn't hide it any longer. Mo Gaohe had been driven into a corner, and he would definitely reveal everything in order to protect himself. Unfortunately, Mo Gaohe had been too stupid. If he hadn't revealed his own identity, the people behind him would have been easier to manipulate, and they could have continued to deal with Lu Yin. For this reason they might have even saved Lu Yin. However, Mo Gaohe had been driven into a corner and revealed his own identity. It didn't matter whether or not he revealed the people behind him, as everyone knew who they were. He had basically betrayed Bai Xiaohong, and the fact that Bai Xiaohong hadn't dealt with him was already benevolent. There was no way that Bai Xiaohong would save Mo Gaohe. Mo Gaohe couldn't rely on exposing his own identity to be saved. Mo Gaohe was a complete joke. Now everyone understood why Mo Gaohe had spent so much effort to deal with Lin Jiangyi. His target was the son-in-law of the White Dragon clan, someone from the four-way scales. Mo Gaohe hadn't been the one to set up this trap, but rather the legendary junior ancestor. Guantong looked at Lu Yin deeply before leaving. He had been used by Bai Xiaohong. No one was a fool, and Lu Yin had been able to see through Mo Gaohe's scheme. Everyone present had been used as pawns. Guantong would remember this not just towards Bai Xiaohong but also towards Lu Yin. After all, he was the cause of everything, but he definitely didn't hate Lu Yin as much as he did Bai Xiaohong. Lu Yin didn't care about Guantong's attitude. His identity had been exposed and he hadn't done anything wrong. Since Guantong couldn't deal with him, he had to swallow his anger. Zhou Xian looked at Lu Yin with a strange expression. He didn't seem to understand, but he also seemed a little excited. There was also something else that he couldn't quite put his finger on. After Guan Tong left, everyone's gaze shifted from Lu Yin to Mo Gaohe. The group of people who had followed Mo Gaohe all left. The white fatty shook his head and sighed as if he couldn't save Mo Gaohe. Mo Gaohe looked at Zhou Xian pleadingly. Fourth uncle Zhou Xian raised a hand and looked at Mo Gaohe helplessly. Little Mo, you and I have known each other for quite some time now. It's not that I don't want to help you, but that you've broken too many family rules. Framing a fellow disciple isn't any less serious than falsely claiming battle merits. Even if you've done a great service by exposing the bamboo family, as Sect Master Guan said, your merits can't completely offset your faults. Mo Gaohe's face grew paler and paler until it was almost bloodless. He lost all his strength and almost fell over. How about this? Since you've contributed to the Yin Mountain district over the years, and you've also done a great service by exposing the bamboo family, you can leave the humble school on your own. I'll report this to the higher-ups, and I believe this is the best outcome. Mo Gaohe gulped, his hands hanging limply by his side. He knew that this was indeed the best outcome. If it had been Guan Tong, he would have definitely skinned him alive. Thank you, Sect Master. Zhou Xian shook his head and waved his hand, shooing Mo Gaohe away. Mo Gaohe glared at invisible light, then at Lu Yin. The hatred in his eyes couldn't be washed away even with all the water in the Zhongping Sea. Could be said that Lu Yin and invisible light had ruined his life. Of course, this was also a result of his own actions. He didn't even dare to contact Miss Yu Chen. After all, he had exposed Lin Jiangyi as Long Qi, which was tantamount to betraying the junior ancestor. Now that he had reacted, it was too late for regrets. Without any harsh words, Mo Gaohe left the Yin Mountain district bleakly. The only person to send him off was Fatty Bai. In Fatty Bai's words, Lu Yin was an opponent who was only slightly weaker than him. Lu Yin looked at Fatty Bai, who was waving goodbye in the distance, and then at Mo Gaohe, who was forcefully suppressing his hatred and anger as he left. What would happen to him in the heavens? He had no foundation, and he had relied on his fake identity to make an enemy out of the frigid Immortal sect. The further he went, the more enemies he would make with his current identity. Lu Yin looked up at the peak realm, and a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Back when he had been suppressed by the Day-Night clan in Astral 10, he had also faced a similar situation. Why did he always run into trouble wherever he went? That night, in Shadow Peak City, Fatty Bai Wang Dashuai warmly invited Lu Yin to a banquet. He wasn't displeased that Lu Yin had concealed his identity. Brother, I understand you, and I also understand the situation in the Peak Realm. You've taken the most dazzling jewel of the Peak Realm and no one is happy about it. There are too many people who want to mess with you, and Mo Gaohe is nothing. There must be someone behind him, Fatty Bai said drunkenly. Lu Yin raised his brows as he had thought that Fatty Bai was really stupid. His heart was as clear as a mirror. Princess Long Shi is the dream of every man in the Peak Realm, but she was taken away by you. Actually, you should be thanking Bai Xiaohong. If it weren't for him, you wouldn't have been able to obtain her. Lu Yin smiled bitterly. But I don't have time to thank him. He wants to kill me. Chapter 1372. The fatty patted Lu Yin's shoulder. Don't worry, the White Dragon clan isn't as powerful as the frigid Immortal sect, but they won't be bullied. Who doesn't have an ancestor to back them up? If you push them too far, they'll turn over the White Dragon just like how they turned over the entire Lu. The fatty suddenly sobered up and looked around fearfully before sighing in relief. Lu Yin was confused. What Lu? The fatty immediately gestured for him to keep quiet, and his face, which had been red from drinking, immediately paled. Don't talk about that. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. There was clearly no one else here, but the fatty was so scared because of one sentence. Could it be that this sentence involved some important secret? The White Dragon turning over Lu? Was it Lu? Or was it the Lu family? Although he didn't want to think about it, Lu Yin felt like he was starting to understand something. He suddenly recalled what Long Shi had said. The White Dragon turning over was enough to push the entire top realm away. What did that have to do with the Lu family? Fatty White's words sounded more like he was pushing the entire continent out. Lu Yin's thoughts were in a mess, but he was interrupted by the fatty. Don't worry, brother. In the Yin Mountain region, fourth uncle doesn't care about anything and doesn't participate in any fights. It's useless for the frigid Immortal sect to look for him. As for me, I'm from the Wang family and don't get along well with the frigid Immortal sect. so I won't cause trouble for you. At least in the Yin Mountain region you'll be safe. Lu Yin wanted to ask about that sentence, but seeing that the fatty had woken up from his drunken stupor, he knew that he couldn't. Right, no matter how stupid Mo Gauha is, he wouldn't find someone who could betray him at any time to scheme against you. How did you deal with Invisible? The fatty asked curiously. Many people were curious as well. No one believed the Invisible Light's nonsense about having righteousness in his heart. It was all bullshit. Lu Yin smiled. He's an old friend of mine, but we haven't seen each other in many years. I saved his life back then. Ah, that idiot Mo Gauha is so unlucky to have found someone like you. Ah. The fatty laughed so hard that he was about to cry. Lu Yin also found it funny, but he didn't know if it was his luck or Mo Gauha's bad luck. Mo Gauha's calculations were very ruthless, but he was just unlucky. At this moment the door was pushed open. Lu Yin and Fatty Bai turned around to see Wang Yun looking at them coldly. Seeing that it was Wang Yun, the white fatty quivered and grinned. Oh, it's Sister Yun. Why haven't I seen you for a while? He went out. Wang Yun didn't pay any attention to the fatty and instead stared at Lu Yin. I heard that you were the one who took Mo Gauha away. Lu Yin blinked. No, he suffered the consequences of his own actions. Wang Yun said coldly. He's not that stupid to do such a thing as soon as he arrived at the Yin Mountain region. I heard that you are Long Xi's husband Long Qi? Lu Yin nodded. Wang Yun's tone became even worse. If you see Long Xi in the future, tell her that I won't let go of what happened back then. After saying this, he slammed the door and left. Lu Yin stared blankly at Fatty Bai. The white fatty spread out his hands. They have a grudge. What grudge? Lu Yin asked, feeling a headache coming on. He had just taken Mo Gauha away, and now there was an even more ruthless person. Fatty Bai carefully ran to the door and opened it to take a look outside. He relaxed when he saw that Wang Yun wasn't there and returned to his original position. He whispered to Lu Yin. Wang Yun was often bullied by Long Xi when he was young. The worst time was when Long Xi painted his entire face yellow and even took a picture of him. Lu Yin was stunned. Was that even possible? Why did this sentence sound so out of place? The picture didn't seem to match the atmosphere of this region of space, but it didn't make much of a difference. Some of the peaks of the White Mountains had developed technological civilizations, and this region of space was similar to the Fifth Mainland in that it had all sorts of civilizations. Long Xi spread that picture everywhere, and from then on Wang Yun hated Long Xi so much that he clenched his teeth, Fatty Bai said, trying to stifle his laughter. Lu Yin was speechless. Wang Yun won't help the frigid Immortal sect deal with me because of that, right? Fatty Bai shook his head. That won't happen. Dealing with you involves the conflict between the frigid Immortal sect and the White Dragon clan. Wang Yun won't dare to interfere. He's not that stupid. Lu Yin was puzzled. Why was Wang Yun bullied by Long Xi? Is there a huge difference in their strength? They look about the same age. Fatty Bai looked at Lu Yin strangely with a puzzled expression. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. Oh no, he'd said the wrong thing. Brother, your White Dragon clan has a special bloodline that makes you different from normal people. Your lifespan is 100 times that of a human's. Based on appearance, Long Xi looks about the same age as Wang Yun, but in reality, Long Xi was almost 100 years old when Wang Yun was born. Due to her slow growth, she still looks like a 5- or 6-year-old human. Isn't it normal to bully Wang Yun? Lu Yin hadn't expected the White Dragon clan to have such a special characteristic. Sigh, you white dragons like to show off your special bloodline. Fatty Bai shook his head helplessly. Lu Yin relaxed and smiled. I'm not showing off. I just blurted it out, that's all. Fatty Bai shook his head gloomily. The next day Zhou Xian summoned Lu Yin. Since Lu Yin's identity had been exposed, it was no longer suitable for him to be an ordinary person in the Yin Mountain region. Thus he would replace Mo Gauha as one of the leaders of the humble families in the Yin Mountain region. In other humble families, a leader's position wouldn't be so casual, but it was different in the Yin Mountain region. Here, whoever had a stronger background would be the leader. Mo Gauha was a leader because of his background in the frigid Immortal sect. Wang Dashui was also a leader because of his background in the Wang family. Now, it was normal for Lu Yin to become a leader because of his background in the White Dragon clan. However, no one had chosen to side with him. Previously, those who had chosen to side with Mo Gauha had looked down on Lu Yin. His status was rather awkward and everyone knew that. More importantly, the frozen immortal sect's junior ancestor Bai Xiaohong was trying to deal with him. Anyone who sided with him would be unlucky. Since the establishment of the humble school in the Yin Mountain district, the most isolated captain had appeared. Fatty Bai sympathized with Lu Yin, but he wouldn't want to join Lu Yin's team either. Following Lu Yin would be equivalent to making an enemy out of Bai Xiaohong. How many people in the Astral Tree region would dare to do that? After Lu Yin became a leader, Long Shi contacted him with an unpleasant expression. Didn't I tell you not to cause trouble? Why didn't you tell me about Mo Gaohe? Lu Yin was helpless. I didn't know what Mo Gaohe was planning. Long Shi snapped. You didn't know? Don't tell me it's a coincidence that you betrayed him. Don't see as an old friend of mine. Long Shi stared at him and snorted. Remember, don't be smug just because you won once. Mo Gaohe is stupid, but Bai Xiaohong isn't. If he can't deal with you the first time, there'll be a second and third time. Stay in the Yin Mountain region and don't do anything, not even patrol. I'll contact Big Brother as soon as possible and arrange for your retirement. Lu Yin nodded and suddenly thought of something. Right, Wang Yun wanted me to tell you something. She said that she'll definitely get her revenge. Long Shi's expression changed and he sneered arrogantly. Her? You better stay away from that, Wang Yun. There's something wrong with that woman's head and she likes to court death. She's courting her own death all the way to the Yin Mountain district. Don't drag her down with you. Lu Yin grunted in acknowledgement. Long Shi ended the call with Lu Yin and immediately contacted Long Tian to arrange for Lu Yin's retirement as soon as possible. Long Tian was surprised. I underestimated your husband. He was actually able to break Yu Chen's plan. Long Shi's expression changed slightly. The Yin Mountain region's plan came from that woman? Who else? She's Bai Xiaohong's most loyal and beautiful lackey. She's famous for scheming against others, and Bai Xiaohong doesn't have the heart to scheme against that Long Qi of yours. Long Shi's expression turned serious. Long Qi was lucky this time. The person they found was his old friend, but he won't be so lucky next time. That woman rarely makes mistakes when scheming against others. Long Tian said, I know how vicious that woman can be. How about this? He'll stay in the Yin Mountain region for another month at the latest. I'll arrange for him to retire as soon as possible. Actually, according to the rules, it's impossible to retire right after joining the humble class, but I'll pay a price. Long Shi's tone was low. I'll do my best to help you compete with others in the ruler realm. Long Tian was satisfied. Then it's settled. Seeing Long Tian's image disappear, Long Shi remained silent. Anyone with a bit of knowledge would know how dangerous the Dominator realm was. In the past Origin Wheel ceremonies, less than half of the people who entered the Dominator realm could come back alive, and only 1 or 2 people could get the opportunity. It was normal for the young ancestor to die. Although she was not weak and had a treasure to protect herself, the chances of her coming back alive were not much higher than others. Those who could enter the Dominator realm were all at her level. Most importantly, her relationship with her brother Long Tian was only so, and he wouldn't care about her at all. If Long Tian had restrained Bai Xiaohong, she wouldn't have been in such a difficult situation. On the surface she was the princess of the White Dragon clan and enjoyed limitless glory, but in reality she couldn't even decide her own marriage or living environment. Unconsciously that figure appeared in her mind again. That warm smile, that person whom she had admired for her entire life. Unfortunately she would never see him again. Long Shi shook her head and sighed. Her long blue hair draped over her shoulders as she clenched her fists. In this universe, being weak wouldn't earn her any sympathy. She had to arm herself with a strong appearance in order to live a better life. Right now she didn't just have to worry about herself, there was someone else as well. She raised her hand and contacted Lu Yin with the Cloud Connection Stone. Lu Yin was puzzled. Long Shi had just contacted him, so why was she calling again? Was she worried about him? Do you know who schemed against you? Long Shi asked Lu Yin with a deep gaze. Lu Yin was curious. Who? This scheme had been flawless, and it reminded Lu Yin of Wei Rong, who could determine victory outside of the battlefield. Yu Chen, Bai Xiaohong's personal maid. She's famous in the top realm, Long Shi said. Chapter 1373. Lu Yin was shocked. A woman? Long Shi's gaze turned cold. Are you looking down on women? Of course not, Lu Yin hurriedly replied. Long Shi coldly replied. This woman helped Bai Xiaohong resolve many matters that the frigid immortal sect couldn't easily deal with. She has many tricks up her sleeve, and very few people who have been targeted by her have been able to escape. Even many of the older powerhouses in the four cardinal scales are wary of her. You can say that she's the other side of Bai Xiaohong. Lu Yin frowned. Someone like Wei Rong hated making an enemy out of such a person. Even if he had the means to suppress her, it would still be very difficult for him to win. Back when the Great Eastern Alliance had been suppressing the Wei family, they had still been delayed by Wei Rong for such a long time. If only Wei Rong or Wang Wen were here, Lu Yin thought to himself. I'll remind you again, don't go out. This woman has many tricks up her sleeves and she can deal with you in ways you can't even imagine. You were lucky this time, but good luck won't last forever, Long Shi warned sternly. I've already urged elder brother and he'll let you retire within a month. That means that you just have to be obedient for a month. Lu Yin nodded. Long Shi looked at him seriously. After a month, you'll be brought to the top realm and officially join the main bloodline of the White Dragon clan. You'll have no worries for the rest of your life, so this 1 month is very important to you. Don't make any mistakes. Lu Yin rubbed his head. Long Shi's second warning had made him cautious. Even this princess of the White Dragon clan was wary of her, which showed how troublesome this woman called Yu Chen was. After joining the humble class, Lu Yin had understood the rules of the humble class. It was almost impossible to join the humble class and retire within 3 months. Even so, Long Tian had promised to do it, which meant that he had paid a huge price. This price was because the person who wanted to deal with him was Yu Chen, a woman that even the junior ancestor was wary of. Lu Yin lowered his hand and looked at the top realm. Perhaps she was looking down at him as well. Gradually, Lu Yin's expression changed and he straightened up. When had he become so cowardly? When Lu Yin had first joined Astral 10, he had offended Night Queen Yanqing and been suppressed by the Day-Night clan. However, he had relied on various methods to survive and eventually disintegrate the Day-Night flow zone. Back then, the Day-Night clan had been as powerful as the frigid immortal sect, but he had still been able to disintegrate them. What did he have to fear in this region of space? At worst, he could start all over again. Moreover, his current status was not simple. He was the son-in-law of the White Dragon tribe's main bloodline. Although it was a joke, his status was still his status. Moreover, he had joined the humble class. His starting point was much higher than when he was in the 5th mainland. Hiding isn't my style. I've been here for so long, but I've been confused by you, he muttered to himself. If the heavens do not tolerate me, I will strengthen myself and the heavens will follow me. Lu Yin took out a list of names from his cosmic ring. It was the same list that he had obtained from Guan Yun's mind, and he silently pondered over it. The next day Lu Yin found Concealed Light. Concealed Light was now his only subordinate in the group. Even if Zhou Xian had assigned the rest to him, the Wastrels would not listen to him. What are you trying to do? Concealed Light was astonished. Lu Yin seriously replied, You're tied to my interests. Because of me, you lost the chance to join the frigid immortal sect. I'll give you another chance. There will definitely be resistance and your achievements will be reported. The 4 Directions Balance's junior ancestors are all from the humble class, and they can all see that your strength will definitely attract their attention. Concealed Light smiled. Looks like you want to play big. Why, don't you want to be passive? Lu Yin laughed. Being passive isn't my style. When have I ever been moved in the 5th mainland? Concealed Light nodded. That's right. I've seen your achievements. From the Astral Combat Academy to the Master of the Outerverse, you've grasped the initiative and achieved many unimaginable things. I believe that you can do the same here. Looks like you're very interested. Lu Yin smiled. Concealed Light smiled. Why not? I was just worrying about how to enter the eyes of the junior ancestors. How big can you get? Lu Yin thought about it. It should be enough to attract the attention of the 9 Gates superintendent. Concealed Light nodded. All right. According to Guan Yun's memories, Lu Yin had recorded down quite a few names. They were densely packed in Huayuan and its surroundings, covering almost half of the Middle Realm. These were all spies that Guan Yun had planted, and some of them were very important. Even Guan Yun himself would not use them, and he would only use them at the most crucial moments. These spies were located in very important positions. Aside from the most important ones, most of the spies were only there to help Guan Yun collect information on the humans, such as resources and other trivial matters. There were quite a few of them in Yinshan City. Yinshan City was a place that provided entertainment for the hedonistic scions of the humble class headquarters. It didn't seem to have much value, but to be able to place their hedonistic scions in the humble class meant that their influence was not small. Some of them were even from the four directions balance. These hedonistic scions seemed useless, but the information they had was enough to analyze many things. Guan Yun had placed a total of 5 spies in Yinshan City, and they had been developed directly by him. These spies were also developing people to gather information. Although these people might not know that the information was being provided to the human race's greatest enemy, what was done was done. On this day in Fragrant Brothel, the white fatty Wang Dashui was enjoying himself every night as usual. Lu Yin brought concealed light and a group of people who had once followed Mo Gaohe in. "Oh, isn't this Captain Long? Please come in, Captain Long," an old woman warmly welcomed Lu Yin. This was not the first time that Lu Yin had met her, and she was very familiar with the fatty. Every time he came to play, she would arrange for beautiful women to accompany him. "Boss Gui, I'm looking for Miss Xianxia," Lu Yin said. There was a rule in Fragrant Brothel that all the top hostesses were called Xianxia. The woman called Boss Gui smiled. "Captain Long, unfortunately Miss Xianxia is currently entertaining Captain Wang. Why don't you change to another one?" Behind Lu Yin, the group of people who had followed Mo Gaohe all looked at Fragrant Brothel with gleaming eyes. Mo Gaohe and the white fatty had been very different from each other, and they had never been here before. Everything was new to them and they all felt a rush. "Since Captain Wang is here, I'll go find him," Lu Yin said, allowing Boss Gui to lead the way. Boss Gui eagerly led the way, not suspecting anything. Lu Yin had always been treated by the white fatty, so it was normal for him to come looking for him. Not long after, Lu Yin saw a beautiful and shy girl sitting in the white fatty's arms. This was the top hostess of Fragrant Brothel, Miss Xianxia. The white fatty had brought a group of people to pass the time, and when he saw Lu Yin, he immediately greeted him warmly. "Brother, you're here. How rare you actually came to Fragrant Brothel of your own accord. Come, sit here." Lu Yin beamed as he walked to the white fatty's side, bent down and whispered something into his ear. The white fatty's expression changed, and Lu Yin suddenly grabbed Miss Xianxia and threw her towards concealed light. She didn't even have time to react. Everyone immediately stood up and glared at Lu Yin. "What are you doing, Captain Long?" Boss Gui was shocked. Miss Xianxia was terrified. "Captain Long, I'll do whatever you want me to do." The white fatty reacted as well, and he looked at Lu Yin suspiciously. Lu Yin whispered, "If it's not true, I'll apologize." The white fatty's eyes flickered as he looked at Miss Xianxia. Tears welled up in the corners of her eyes. "Captain Wang, did I do something wrong? Why are you treating me like this?" Anyone would sympathize with such a pitiful girl, and the white fatty's followers immediately surrounded Lu Yin's group. "Captain Long, you're going against us just because you chased Mo Gaohe away. That's not very nice of you. Captain Long, give us an explanation. Even if you're from the White Dragon clan, we won't let this go. We won't let this go." After Lu Yin left, Mo Gaohe's followers became even more excited. They were already at odds with the white fatty, and now they were all red in the face as they cursed loudly. The white fatty raised a hand, his expression solemn. "Brother, are you sure you want to do this?" Lu Yin seriously replied, "If I'm in the wrong, I'll definitely admit it." The white fatty nodded and waved his hand. "Let them leave." "Thank you," Lu Yin said before leading his group away. Many people started discussing behind him, most of them saying that Lu Yin had refused to acknowledge Wang Dashui after taking his position. They also said that he was a scoundrel who was intoxicated by success, or that he was scheming. The white fatty's ears were filled with ridicule as well, but he had lived for many years and wasn't that shallow. If he was too stupid, he wouldn't have been able to cultivate to his current level. He was quite good at judging people, and this Draconic 7 wasn't Mo Gaohe. Besides, there was no benefit in going against him. All right, you're all dismissed. Come back tomorrow." The white fatty impatiently waved them away. Boss Gui hurriedly pulled him back and begged, "Captain Wang, please save Miss Xianxia. You're an honored guest of the Fragrant Brothel, and Miss Xianxia has always liked you. When she heard that you were coming, she put aside the other guests to serve you. You can't leave her alone." The white fatty was depressed. "All right, I'll keep an eye on her." He then left the Fragrant Brothel as he had to witness an outcome. News of Draconic 7 kidnapping Miss Hanxiang in front of Wang Dashui quickly spread throughout Yinshan City and caused a lot of discussion. Many people said that Draconic 7 was even more ruthless than Mo Gaohe. At the very least, Mo Gaohe wouldn't dare to casually step into Wang Dashui's territory, as Draconic 7 could cause an earthquake in the Yin Mountain district. Zhou Xian also heard the news, but he didn't care. He hadn't even cared about the 100-man battle between Mo Gaohe and Wang Dashui, let alone such a small matter. As for the fragrant brothel, it didn't matter to him at all. Although the headquarters in the Yin Mountain district was a place for those good-for-nothings, there was still a prison for interrogating criminals. For the sake of face, those good-for-nothings had built a prison that was even more comprehensive than other poor families. All kinds of punishments were available, including expert interrogators. In less than an hour that Miss Hanxiang had told him everything. Chapter 1374. Miss Hanxiang was developed by a person with the code name, Grass, into a spy who specialized in collecting information. Her biggest target was Wang Dashui and the other hedonistic sons of rich parents. She did everything she could to record everything these hedonistic sons knew and report it to her superiors. There was also information that she hadn't been able to report to her superiors in time. When everything turned out to be true, the white fatty was stunned. He had actually been tricked. His back was covered in cold sweat as he read through the information. He had been the one to tell her all this, and although most of it wasn't important, some of it was still important. When Miss Hanxiang's confession was confirmed, Zhou Xian could no longer sit still and personally came to the torture chamber. The torture chamber was dark, and its layout was even more sinister than the other poor families. These good-for-nothings had plenty of money and connections, and they had turned this place into the largest and most wasteful torture chamber. The interrogator was also one of the top experts in the Middle Realm, and he was known as Quick Uncle. Quick Uncle was an old man on the verge of retirement. He had joined the Yin Mountain region because the good-for-nothings had offered him a high price, and because he was about to retire and didn't want to tire himself out. He wanted to slowly muddle along until he retired. This was a process that ordinary people had to go through, as they couldn't retire just because they wanted to. Poor families had strict family rules, and it was obvious that Long Tian had paid a huge price for Lu Yin to retire so quickly. Regardless of whether it was the torture chamber or Quick Uncle, they were all good-for-nothings who had fought for the Yin Mountain region's reputation. They couldn't obtain any military merits, so they made a big deal out of it. Quick Uncle had thought that he would never have the chance to interrogate anyone again in this lifetime, and he had been happy to be idle. Who would have thought that Lu Yin would quickly send him his first prisoner, and a beautiful woman at that? He was itching for a fight, but this woman was not tight-lipped. All he had done was scare her a little, and she had spilled everything. Miss Hanxiang wasn't a strong-willed traitor. She had simply been developed. She didn't even know who the person with the code name Grass was. Zhou Xian looked at Miss Hanxiang, whose face was pale and whose eyes were filled with fear. His lazy expression changed slightly. How much information have you gathered? Miss Hanxiang was terrified. No, not much. How long has it been? Zhou Xian asked again. She trembled. 3 years. Behind her, the white fatty's face paled. He had probably told her everything in 3 years. Zhou Xian frowned. What are the characteristics of the person with the code name Grass? Miss Hanxiang shook her head. Oh, I don't know. Every time he appears, he's always so mysterious. I don't even have the ability to see him clearly. Whether it was Zhou Xian or Lu Yin, they all believed this because Miss Hanxiang was only a melder. To them, she was just an ordinary person. Zhou Xian looked at an old man with bulging muscles and a white beard. It was Uncle Kuai. Uncle Kuai, did she tell you everything? He didn't ask Miss Hanxiang but asked Uncle Kuai instead. This was his trust in Uncle Kuai. As long as Uncle Kuai said no, he would also believe no. Uncle Kuai said regretfully, I've already told you everything. Little babies can't be scared. I can't even get rid of the itch in my hands. Lu Yin's lips curled up. Are you itching for a fight? Junior will find a few more friends for you. Zhou Xian, Fatty Bai, and Uncle Kuai all looked at Lu Yin in astonishment. There was no such thing as merit in the Yin Mountain district. It was a paradise, and Lu Yin was clearly an exception. The white fatty stared blankly at Lu Yin as if this was the first time they had met. Zhou Xian stood up and smiled. It's a good thing that young people are motivated. But what do you plan to do? Lu Yin replied confidently. Junior has always had an ability that is different from ordinary people. I have a unique gift for observing people. As long as I wander around Yinshan City, I'm sure I'll be able to find more people like Miss Han Xiang. The white fatty couldn't help but ask, "You've always thought of Miss Han Xiang as a spy?" Lu Yin shook his head, "Not really. After all, she's always been with you." The white fatty felt awkward. Zhou Xian shrugged, "Lin Jiangyi no long 7, you've made a contribution. It's a real contribution." His gaze deepened. "You don't have any other plans?" Lu Yin didn't know what Zhou Xian meant. Did Zhou Xian know that he was going to retire? "I just want to help the poor and find more redbacks for the humans. I don't have any other thoughts," Lu Yin replied. Zhou Xian nodded. "Be careful of danger." He then left the prison. No one cared about Miss Han Xiang, but she couldn't die. Only living criminals had value. The white fatty chased after Lu Yin and left the prison, wanting to say something but hesitating. Lu Yin laughed. "Don't worry. A spy like her doesn't have much value, and the information I get from you won't affect the Wang family at all. You won't be in any trouble." The white fatty sighed. "The redbacks are too rampant. Sooner or later I'll go to the back of the mother tree and fight those monsters." Lu Yin's gaze shifted. This region of space seemed to have many experts and many progenitors, but the battlefield was still on the back of the mother tree. What did this mean? It meant that the humans had always been at a disadvantage. And those monsters' opponents weren't limited to this region of space. The 6th mainland and the 5th mainland were their targets, and no one knew how powerful they were. Perhaps one day this region of space, including those 2 mainlands, would shatter and the humans would have less space to live. Lu Yin thought of the limitless expanse, the seed of humanity's survival. The 9 gates of the Central Realm had many experts, and their spies were spread throughout the entire Central Realm. Even so, it was not every day that a spy could be caught, let alone a redback. Lu Yin didn't know what kind of temptation the human enemies on the back of the mother tree had given to these people, but they were willing to work for them without regard for their own race. The redbacks that had been developed by the human enemies all had great backgrounds, and their influence was enormous. The number of spies they developed would only increase. Although capturing a few spies wasn't very valuable, if they weren't captured, more spies would appear and the humans would eventually run out of secrets. Lu Yin had captured Miss Han Xiang, and although it was a battle merit, it was insignificant compared to the 9 gates of the Central Realm. It was just that she had come from the Yin Mountain region, which was surprising, but most people still thought that it was just luck. The next day, Lu Yin brought Ming Guang and a group of people to Yin Mountain City and wandered around. Yin Mountain City was bustling with activity. Although there weren't many people, they were all cultivators and had high spending power. Most of them had some sort of background. Lu Yin had set his eyes on a wine master in one of the taverns in Yinshan City. The man was very famous in the city, and anyone who loved wine knew him. Not only did he have a deep understanding of wine, but he was also very knowledgeable. It was as if he had seen everything, and he was very good at enlightening others. Even people like Mo Gauha and the white fatty had sought him out for a chat. When he arrived at the tavern, Lu Yin immediately gave the order to clear it out. Those hedonistic sons of rich families who had followed Mo Gauha reluctantly did as Lu Yin said. They all chased people out like hooligans, and in the blink of an eye the tavern was empty. Only the owner, the wine master, and a few waiters remained. Lu Yin sat in front of the wine master while Ming Guang stood behind him. The wine master's face was warm and his gaze was gentle. It was as if he could see through people's hearts. "Captain Long, I've heard a lot about you," the wine master said, his voice very comforting. Lu Yin smiled. "I've heard that you have a deep understanding of wine, and that you have your own views on everything in the world. Could you please enlighten me?" "Please speak, Captain Long," the wine master smiled. Lu Yin tapped his finger on the table for the 5th time before looking up. "Sir, do you know what I'm thinking?" The wine master shook his head and laughed. "I'm not a god. How would I know what you're thinking?" Lu Yin smiled. "I'm thinking that someone who loves wine should also be someone with rich emotions. If that's the case, why would you betray humanity? Those monsters don't seem to have any emotions." The wine master's expression changed and he suddenly attacked. He had always revealed his strength as an explorer, but at this moment he revealed his strength as an enlighter. However, as soon as he attacked, an unparalleled domain rendered him immobile. He stared at Ming Guang in shock. and the invisible domain immediately crushed him to the ground before sweeping through all of Yinshan City. Many people in Yinshan City were shocked. What a terrifying domain. Lu Yin waved a hand. Capture him. He's a spy. The hedonistic sons of rich families were stunned. Lu Yin had captured one just like that. So quickly. Regardless of whether they believed it or not, the wine master still had to be captured. Soon news of the wine master's capture spread throughout Yinshan City. This was the second person Lu Yin had captured. On the third day he captured another person. This person was a fortune teller who specialized in serving those with power and influence. He had even once told the white fatty's marriage. On the fourth day Lu Yin brought some people to wipe out a small family in the city and found a large amount of information regarding the Yinshan district and even the Huayuan district. Over the next 4 days Lu Yin had captured 4 spies. Aside from the wine master who had remained silent, the others quickly confessed. Zhou Xian was stunned. Lu Yin's efficiency was too high. Fast Uncle was very happy. Although he was on the verge of retirement and wanted to rest, he hadn't interrogated anyone for so long that his hands were itching. The wine master's appearance had satisfied his craving. On the 5th day, a giant goat-like creature walked out of Yinshan City with a young girl on its back. She was humming a song without a care in the world. Lu Yin appeared with Ming Guang's group and intercepted the girl. Many people outside the city were watching. When the girl saw Lu Yin blocking her path, panic flashed through her eyes. However, it was only for a moment and almost no one noticed. So it's you, Captain Long. You've captured 4 spies in 4 days. What's the meaning of this? Don't tell me you've set your sights on me, the girl joked. She wasn't afraid because she was one of Wang Yun's people. Wang Yun had known her since arriving in the Yinshan district, and the two had known each other for many years. They had a good relationship, and because of her relationship with Wang Yun, no one dared to provoke her. Even Mo Gaohe and the white fatty were quite attentive when they saw her. Lu Yin smiled. You're really smart. I Long Chi am quite good at judging people. You look very similar to Miss Han Xiang. The girl's face sank. Captain Long, are you trying to humiliate me by comparing me to that kind of woman? Lu Yin shrugged. You misunderstand. I'm saying that you're a spy. Chapter 1375. The crowd went into an uproar when they heard Lu Yin's words, and they all looked at him in shock. Even the group of hedonistic disciples behind Lu Yin were shocked. They had been convinced of Lu Yin's abilities over the past few days, but the scene before them was still a little ridiculous. This girl was just a normal person. Ah, Captain Long, you must be joking. You're saying that I'm a spy? I'm just a normal person who doesn't even have a cultivation. How can I be a spy? And how can I gather information? The girl laughed. Lu Yin's lips curled up. If I say you're a spy, then you're a spy. He then barked, capture her. No one moved. Wang Yun had accumulated his power in the Yin Mountain district for a long time, and none of the hedonistic disciples dared to offend him. The girl was pleased with herself. Invisible Light walked out and waved her hand, using star energy to bind the girl and make her fall to the ground. The creature carrying her was uneasy, and it stared at Invisible Light before charging over. However, it was frozen by Lu Yin's domain and could not move. Long 7, you dare to capture me? I'm Sister Yun's subordinate and she won't let you off if she finds out. Don't even think about accusing me of being a spy. The girl struggled as she screamed. Lu Yin ignored her and took her away, leaving the crowd to discuss amongst themselves. At this point, the 5 spies that Lu Yin had learned from Guanyun's memories had all been uncovered. However, the wine master had not confessed, and the girl had persisted for 3 days until Wang Yun returned. Within the prison, Wang Yun clenched his fists and glared at Lu Yin. In front of him was a helpless Zhou Xian, Uncle Kwai, and the white fatty hiding in a corner. If you don't give me an explanation, I'll let you know the consequences, Wang Yun said through gritted teeth. Behind him, the girl was covered in injuries and her face was pale. Lu Yin shrugged and turned around. Uncle Kwai, did the wine master confess? Uncle Kwai nodded. He did. He even told us about how he wet his bed when he was young. How long did he last? 2.5 days. Lu Yin grunted in acknowledgement and then looked at Wang Yun. The wine master is an enlightener, but he was able to last 2.5 days under Quickie Uncle's methods. This woman with no cultivation, your adopted sister, lasted 3 days without saying a word. Wang Yun was stunned, but then his expression changed. Zhou Xian and the white fatty trembled. Who is fast uncle? He was one of the few interrogators in the Central Realm, and as long as someone was interrogated by him, even if they had been wrongly accused, they would still have to tell him everything that had happened according to his wishes. Even an enlightened willpower could not withstand his interrogation, so how could a normal person withstand it? Interrogation wasn't just about extorting a confession. It also included all kinds of methods. No matter how strong an ordinary person's will was, their body wouldn't be able to withstand it. However, that young girl had lasted for 3 days. When the young girl heard this, her face turned even paler. She had actually overlooked this. Uncle Kwai was very proud of himself. No ordinary person could last the time it took for a stick of incense to burn under his hands, let alone 3 days. Wang Yun wasn't stupid. He also understood what was going on. He turned around and stared at the young lady in disbelief. The young girl looked at Wang Yun with a blurry face and gasped for breath. Sister Yun, I didn't do it. I'm not a spy. I'm not. Wang Yun clenched her fists as her chest heaved up and down. She recalled the time she spent with the young girl. She treated the young girl like a little sister and told her everything. If she was a spy, it would be a huge problem for her. Even if he wasn't a spy, so what if he really relied on his extraordinary willpower to hold on for 3 days? It didn't matter if others didn't believe him. Everyone would believe Long Chi's words and she would be used as an idiot. Wang Yun's eyes flashed with killing intent. The young girl saw this and struggled violently. Sister Yun, don't kill me. I didn't do it. I'm not a spy. Don't kill me. Lu Yin suddenly stood in front of the young girl and stared straight at Wang Yun. Everyone could see that Wang Yun wanted to silence the young girl. Zhou Xian was lazy and didn't stop her. It didn't matter if there was one more spy or one less spy. He wouldn't argue with Wang Yun over such a small matter. This woman had a strong background. The white fatty didn't say a word and just watched. Wang Yun stared at Lu Yin and narrowed her eyes. Lu Yin stared at her for a while and then stepped aside. Wang Yun raised her brows. Lu Yin smiled. Perhaps there's never been such a person in Yinshan City. Wang Yun's eyes flashed. The young girl was shocked. No, I don't want to die. Sister Yun, don't kill me. You have to protect me. I can help you find other spies. I can help you dash. Before she could finish speaking, Wang Yun's finger pierced through her neck. Fresh blood flowed down the back of her neck and dyed the ground red. The young girl's eyes were lifeless and filled with unwillingness, but she still died under the torture in front of Lu Yin's eyes. Wang Yun's eyes flashed with pity, but she took a deep breath and looked at Lu Yin. I owe you a favor. She then turned and left. The young girl had finally admitted to being a spy, and Lu Yin hadn't wrongly accused her. Instead, he had allowed Wang Yun to dispose of her so that Wang Yun wouldn't be ridiculed. Even if Lu Yin was the cause of all this, she still had to accept this favor and repay it. Zhou Xian looked at Lu Yin deeply. This person's appearance had changed the Yin Mountain district, but he didn't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing. The white fatty hurriedly left as this place was eerie. In the end, only Lu Yin, Obscurely, and Quickie were left behind. Lu Yin smiled at Quickie. Thank you, senior. Quickie laughed. It's nothing. It's just a trick. It's also an interrogation method. Actually, the wine master hadn't confessed, but in order to trick the young girl and fool Wang Yun, Lu Yin and Quickie had worked together to put on a show. The results had been pretty good. Wang Yun had revealed his killing intent when he realized that the young girl might be a spy, and he had forced her to confess. In the end, he had even owed Lu Yin a favor. The young girl had pointed out other spies, but no one had cared. There were too many spies and Lu Yin didn't lack one or two. Wang Yun's favor, however, was different. Wang Yun had wanted to silence her, but Zhou Xian and the rest hadn't reacted at all. In that moment, Lu Yin had confirmed that Wang Yun's background was even greater than what the white fatty had said. Even Zhou Xian was apprehensive. They had captured 4 spies in Yinshan City and shaken the 9 gates of the Middle Realm, but the young girl had pretended not to exist. Spies were far less valuable than redbacks, but they weren't insignificant either. Commoners still had the most missions to capture spies every day, and there were almost no redbacks. Redbacks hid themselves deeper and had greater influence, making them more difficult to capture. Capturing 4 spies in a row was enough for Long Seven's name to spread to the other commoners. Although it wasn't enough to attract the attention of the 9 Gates superintendent, This merit was still real. Lu Yin's testimony and evidence were all complete. The commoners were very efficient. 3 days after the young girl's death, Lu Yin was summoned by Zhou, who gave him 4 merit points. The wine master had already confessed 2 days ago, and the young girl, just as Lu Yin had said, had never existed. He had just treated it as a mistake. You've only been in the commoners for 2 months, but you've already made contributions and earned 4 merit points. That's pretty good. Keep up the good work, Zhou encouraged. Lu Yin respectfully replied, I'll have to ask for your guidance. Zhou couldn't help but laugh. You're too slippery, kid. What's there for me to take care of you? However, the main branch of the White Dragon clan has treated you well and helped you so much. If you want to retire with just 4 merit points, it's still not enough. It's best if you can capture a redback. Anyone who captures a redback will be given special attention by the commoners. Lu Yin blinked. It seemed that Zhou thought that he had captured these people because the White Dragon clan had provided him with information. That was fine, he would let him misunderstand. I understand. I'll work hard, Lu Yin said. Zhou nodded. The 4 merit points are the reward for capturing them. The Yin Mountain District will reward you with an additional point. Lu Yin was grateful. Thank you, Sect Master. With this, he would have enough merit points to exchange for the Medal of Righteousness. The commoners were similar to the Hall of Honor in that they could exchange merit points for rewards. One of the rewards was called the Medal of Righteousness. This medal didn't have any practical use and was more like a facade. Anyone who had it represented that they had made contributions in the commoners. Lu Yin didn't need any other rewards as he had plenty of them. Money wasn't something that he craved, but the Medal of Righteousness was something that he greatly desired. With it he could at least make Bai Xiaohong feel a little more apprehensive. 5 merit points can be exchanged for a reward. What would you like to exchange for? The Yin Mountain District doesn't have it, but I can get it from other commoners or directly from the superintendent, Zhou said. Lu Yin didn't hesitate. The Medal of Righteousness. Zhou's eyes lit up. Smart. He seemed to have been prepared for this as he raised his hand and handed over a medal with a blurry head to Lu Yin. Lu Yin accepted it. Thank you, Sect Master. The Medal of Righteousness represents that you have contributed to the humble class. Many people like to wear it to show off, but for you it's a very good life-saving item. With it, normal schemes won't be able to touch you. And above the Medal of Righteousness is the Medal of the Tree. If you can obtain it, you can request an audience with the 9-Gate Superintendent. If you die, the humble class will investigate. Do your best, Zhou reminded him. Lu Yin knew about the Medal of the Tree. It was similar to having 11 honor points, and the cause of death would be investigated. Even if there was irrefutable evidence, the commoners would go through it again. This was a precious item that could truly negate Bai Xiaohong's schemes. Unfortunately, the Medal of the Tree required 10 medals of righteousness to exchange for. This was one of the reasons why Lu Yin wanted to exchange for the Medal of Righteousness. Although it was a little far off, it wasn't impossible. Huayuan was south of the Yin Mountain District, and it was the border between the Yin Mountain District and the Mother Tree's trunk. The Bifrost Bridge wasn't the only path from the Middle Realm to the Top Realm. There were also ways to ascend the trunk, so Huayuan's location was special. The humble school of Huayuan was naturally one of the more important 9 gates of the Middle Realm. At this moment, the 3 Guan brothers were sitting in silence within the humble school of Huayuan. Guan Yun threw his cup to the ground with a thud. That Draconic 7 is too hateful. It wasn't easy for us to develop our spies, but he took out 5 of them in one go. Shut up. Guan Tong barked, glaring at Guan Yun. Guan Yun snorted. Guan Hai frowned. Third brother, I told you not to be too obvious. Those 5 spies have nothing to do with us. Guan Tong glared at Guan Yun before turning to Guan Hai. How did Draconic 7 find out? Those people don't know each other and there's no connection. Only the 3 of us know their identities, so it's almost impossible to find them all at once. Chapter 1376. Guan Hai frowned. It's said that Long 7 is very talented and can observe people. What a joke. Even if he's that talented, it's impossible for him to find them in Yin Mountain City in just 5 days, Guan Yun said angrily. Guan Tong's eyes narrowed as he recalled the ridiculous scene in Yin Mountain District. On the surface, it seemed like Mo Gaoha's plan had failed due to bad luck, but Long 7 wasn't simple at all. He had allowed Mo Gaoha to plot against him, but in the end he had chased Imo Gauha out of Yin Mountain District. Long Seven wasn't a useless piece of trash like the rumors said. On the contrary, he was very shrewd. However, no matter how shrewd he was, it was impossible for him to capture 5 spies in 5 days, especially in Yin Mountain City. How did he do it? Could it be that the main branch of the White Dragon clan had made a move? Guan Tong was frustrated. Brother, calm down. Let's see what Long Seven will do next. Yin Mountain City is Zhou Xi's territory, so it might have something to do with him, Guan Hai said. Guan Tong's expression changed. You're saying that Long Seven didn't find the 5 spies but Zhou Xi? Guan Yun slapped his thigh. That must be it. Zhou Xi has been in Yin Mountain District for so many years, and nothing can be hidden from him. It's not strange for him to find these spies. He might seem lazy, but he doesn't want to have anything to do with the outside world because of what happened back then. However, he's still a human and one of the leaders of the Middle Realm's 9 sects. It doesn't make sense for him to not deal with the spies after finding them, Guan Hai said. Guan Tong nodded. That makes sense. He's using Long Seven to get rid of the spies, but why Long Seven? Is there anyone else in Yin Mountain District besides Long Seven? Guan Hai asked slowly. Guan Tong was shocked. He wants to get in touch with the White Dragon clan? But it was because of the White Dragon clan that... Brother, what happened back then is taboo for everyone, so there's no need to talk about it. Since we've guessed that it was Zhou Xi, we don't have to care about him. Those spies are gone, Guan Hai interrupted. Guan Tong sighed. Forget it. Let's not care about him. Will Zhou Xi make a move again? Guan Yun asked. Guan Hai sneered. That would require him to have the ability to do so. If it's that easy for him to gain military merits, wouldn't the humble class be nothing more than a decoration? Guan Tong smiled and said, he was only able to find the spy in Yinshan City after many years. It's impossible for him to do it anywhere else. Guan Yun snorted. That better be the case. Otherwise I'll definitely deal with him. On the other side, Yu Chen had obtained a detailed report that detailed every step of Mo Gaohe and Lu Yin's plan. She was very clear about these steps because she was the one who had set them up. Mo Gaohe had only been the executor, but the plan had ended in failure. Ever since she had followed the young ancestor, she had rarely failed in her schemes. However, this time she had failed miserably. Not only had she been plotted against, but she had also exposed herself as the person behind the scenes. Could be said that she had failed completely. Yu Chen never believed in coincidences. She was more willing to believe that the invisible light was someone that Lu Yin had purposely arranged for Mo Gaohe. She would always think of the worst-case scenario. He actually managed to exchange for the righteous metal. As expected, he's not stupid. Yu Chen's eyes contained a trace of a smile. She didn't care about this defeat. The smarter the opponent, the more valuable it would be to defeat them. After reading through the entire report, Yu Chen raised a hand and directly contacted Guan Tong, the master of the humble Huayuan school. As by Xiaohong's personal maid, she had access to unimaginable information. She had access to almost all the information about the cold Immortal sect, not to mention contacting Guan Tong. However, she was only one person after all, so she couldn't have access to all the information. Naturally, she had more than 100 people to help her. Among them, there was one person she admired, a man surnamed Lu. Although his surname was Lu, he had actually managed to rely on the frigid Immortal sect. This sort of thing was rare, and this person was also quite clever. He was just the right person to help her. Guan Tong and the others had just finished their discussion, and before they could even separate, Yu Chen contacted them. Miss Yu Chen, what's the matter? Guan Tong asked calmly as he looked at the peerlessly beautiful yet vicious woman in front of him. Not far away were Guan Yun and Guan Hai. Guan Yun looked at Yu Chen's back with a burning gaze. Long she was indeed the brightest pearl in the top realm, but Yu Chen wasn't bad either. She was only inferior to Long Shi in terms of status, but when it came to scheming she was far superior. Countless people dreamed of obtaining this woman. The stronger a woman was, the more men would want to conquer her. Unfortunately, she was Bai Xiaohong's woman. Yu Chen was extremely respectful towards Guan Tong. After all, he was an emissary and one of the 9 sect leaders of the Middle Realm. He wasn't someone Elder Green Apricot could compare to. Sect leader, long time no see. The last time we met was 5 years ago. Guan Tong nodded. We met when I met with Ancestor Bai. Yu Chen smiled. It's my honor that you still remember me, sect leader. Guantong's eyes narrowed. He was quite apprehensive. Even though he hated Bai Xiaohong because of Mo Gaohe, he didn't dare to be careless in front of this woman. Her intelligence and unparalleled strength were both difficult to deal with. May I know why Miss Yuchen contacted me? Guantong asked. Yuchen smiled and slowly bowed. Guantong was surprised. What is the meaning of this, Miss Yuchen? Yuchen said seriously, because of the matter with Long Qi, I impudently borrowed your authority. Please forgive me, sect leader Guan. She bowed again. Seeing Yuchen's attitude, Guantong's ill feelings lessened slightly. However, he was also a cultivator and he wasn't stupid. This woman wouldn't apologize for no reason. Let bygones be bygones. If Miss Yuchen is contacting me because of this, there's no need to apologize. Yuchen smiled and the air around them brightened. Guan Yun's breathing quickened when he saw this. This kind of woman was too exquisite. Sect leader, I'm sorry, but I'd like to make a deal with you, Yuchen said. Guantong's eyes flashed. My apologies, Miss Yuchen. I'm just the sect leader of the humble Huayun sect. I'm focused on capturing spies and redbacks. I'm not interested in anything else. Yuchen smiled. Ancestor Bai said that if you're willing to help us, he'll be willing to support you in becoming one of the 9 sect's supervisors in the future. It's not just him, he can convince that lord as well. Guantong's eyes widened. Not far away, Guan Hai and Guan Yun were overjoyed. If someone else had said something like this, they wouldn't have cared, but this was Bai Xiaohong, the young ancestor of the frigid Immortal sect. He was a peerless genius who had a high chance of reaching the progenitor realm in the future. He was also a peerless genius who had taken control of the frigid Immortal sect at such a young age. If that were all, they wouldn't have been so excited. No matter how talented he was, he still needed time to grow. This promise was too vague. What really excited them was that there was a person standing behind Bai Xiaohong. That person was Bai Xiaohong's elder sister, Bai Xianer. She was an existence that truly stood at the peak of the starry sky. With a single word, she could decide the balance of the 4 directions. With a single word, she could change the situation of the poor. With a single word, she could make a progenitor cautious. She was Bai Xianer, the emperor of the starry sky. Only those who had come into contact with the upper echelons of the starry sky tree knew how terrifying Bai Xianer was. She could summon clouds and rain with a flip of her hand. She didn't take action easily, but once she did, no one could stop her from doing anything. Even progenitors had to be wary of her. If Bai Xianer was willing to support him in becoming the 9-gate superintendent, then it would be a done deal. Guantong's breathing quickened and his eyes turned red. Can I really get her support? Miss Yuchen smiled. That will depend on how far you can go. You should know what the junior ancestor wants and what he wants to destroy. Guantong fell into deep thought. Miss Yuchen didn't disturb him. Think about it carefully. You only have one chance. With that, the image disappeared. Guan Yun anxiously said, Big brother, what are you waiting for? There are so many people in the universe who want to use junior ancestor Bai to get close to that person. Now that the opportunity is right in front of you, you must seize it. Guantong frowned as he pondered. Big brother, what's there to think about? Even the 9-gate superintendent has to give that person face. If she's willing to fight for you, who in the middle-level realm can compete with you? Even in the upper-level realm, no one would dare to go against that person. That was the case back then, Guan Yun said anxiously. Third brother, I know what I'm doing, Guan Hai said calmly, stopping Guan Yun from saying anything else. Guan Yun turned around anxiously. Guantong looked at Guan Hai. Getting her support is important, but we're just cannon fodder when it comes to interfering in the battle for the 4 cardinal scales. Guan Hai nodded. If the person who made the promise to us was that person herself, we would accept it no matter what. But if it's through Bai Xiaohong, it's not too reliable. Guantong said, Bai Xiaohong isn't enough to influence that person. The 9-gate superintendent's position is extremely important, and it's impossible for it to fall into our hands. It's almost always held by people from the 4 cardinal scales, so it's very difficult to get there. But big brother. Guan Yun wanted to say something else, but he was stopped by Guantong, who glared at him. Interfering in the battle for the 4 cardinal scales? Do you want to die? Even if you can get her support, you'll have to live long enough to become a 9-gate superintendent. Don't forget our identities. The higher we stand, the more advantageous it is for us, but it's also easier for us to be exposed. Guan Yun was helpless. Everyone in this part of the universe wanted to come into contact with that person. That woman was truly like a god, the one who controlled this part of the universe. Unfortunately, a god was a god and mortals could not touch her. Yuchen did not expect the three Guan brothers to risk their lives for her with just a few words. She was sure that Long Seven would continue to act and think of ways to obtain battle merits to protect himself. However, this battle merit might cause the three Guan brothers to be dissatisfied, as the only place he could obtain battle merits was the Huayun. Because of this incident, she could analyze Long Seven's temperament. He was definitely not a coward, or else he would not have schemed against Imo Gauha. Instead, he would have directly told the White Dragon tribe to step in. Long Seven continued to capture spies. The more he captured, especially in the Huayuan region, the more people felt that the three Guan brothers were incompetent. They would have to deal with this person sooner or later. Chapter 1377. Yuchen pondered for a moment. Under normal circumstances, even if the three Guan brothers were unhappy with Long Qi, it would take some time. However, the White Dragon tribe would not give her this time. Perhaps the White Dragon tribe had already arranged for Long Qi to retire in the near future. After some thought, she decided that she had to speed things up. Yuchen's guess was right. Lu Yin would not be satisfied with just the few spies in Yin Mountain City. It was not worth it to expose his true nature. If he was going to do something, he would do it big. Over the next few days, Lu Yin led his team to patrol the Yin Mountain district even more frequently. Fortunately, the group of hedonistic youths were quite convinced by him after he'd captured the spies, so they didn't cause any trouble. Otherwise, he would have had to patrol with Invisible Light and the other two. 3 days later, Lu Yin captured another spy. This spy was located at the border between Yin Mountain and Huayun. It was considered the border of Huayuan, but it still belonged to Huayuan. When Lu Yin captured this spy, the three Guan brothers were extremely dissatisfied with him, but they could not say anything. Although the humble schools of the Middle Plain were divided into 9 schools, there was a tacit understanding that they would not interfere with each other and would not capture others' territories. However, that was only a tacit understanding and not an explicit rule. For the entire humble school, the more spies they captured, the better. The higher-ups did not care who captured them. Lu Yin's methods became more and more ruthless, and after a few more days he captured another spy in Huayuan. This time he completely angered the three Guan brothers, but Lu Yin did not care. He was still thinking about how to capture Guan Yun. This guy was not a spy but a redback. Capturing a crimson back was more meritorious than capturing 100 spies. A crimson back could often develop dozens or hundreds of spies, all of which had been developed for many years. Any crimson back who could be developed directly by those monsters was not an ordinary person. At the very least, they had lived for thousands of years. The number of spies developed over such a long period of time was unpredictable. Even if Long Tian wanted to give Lu Yin some merit, he would not give him a redback. At most, he would help Lu Yin capture a dozen spies. If he could capture Guan Yun, Lu Yin was sure that he could alert the 9 school superintendent and even meet her. On this day, Lu Yin was still patrolling with his team when one of his subordinates returned. He shook the cloudstone and saw a line of words floating in the air. The cloudstone could not only communicate with each other, but it could also display certain images. Lu Yin was shocked when he saw the line of words. It was actually information on a spy, and more than one at that. Who gave this to you? I don't know, but it was sent here directly, the subordinate said casually. They were all hedonistic sons of rich families, and although they respected Lu Yin, they weren't too obedient. Lu Yin looked at the list of spies and wondered if Long Tian had given it to him, but it didn't seem likely. If Long Tian had given it to him, Long Shi would have told him in advance. If it wasn't Long Tian, then where did this list come from? They were all Huayuan's spies. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. This was interesting. Someone wanted him to hurry up and capture Huayuan's spies? It was not that he did not know that the more spies Huayuan captured, the more he would offend the three Guan brothers, because that would make them seem incompetent. More importantly, the person who gave the list actually knew about these spies. It was impossible that the three Guan brothers didn't know about them, so why didn't they capture them themselves? There was only one possibility. These spies were probably the same as the person from the Zhou family. They were all chess pieces that the Guan family's 3 brothers had released. Someone wanted him to offend the 3 Guan brothers. Lu Yin immediately guessed who was behind this. It had to be that Yuchen. She had given him this list to capture and offended the three Guan brothers. If he didn't capture them, she definitely had a way to make him take the blame, such as indulging the spies. This woman was impatient to make a move at this time. It seemed like she had also guessed that the White Dragon clan would force him to retire and wanted to have some fun before retiring. Lu Yin thought about it and led his team back to meet Zhou Xian looked at the list in his hand and silently put it down. He looked at Lu Yin. The people on this list don't have much of a background, but their identities are a bit special. You can capture them with your abilities, so why give them to me? Lu Yin puffed out his chest. My contributions alone can never compare to the contributions of the entire Yin Mountain region. Zhou Xian laughed. You want to give this contribution to the entire Yin Mountain region? Lu Yin solemnly answered, yes. Zhou Xian pursed his lips. He wasn't an idiot, and no one would be so stupid as to give away their contribution. He understood after thinking about it for a bit and looked at Lu Yin strangely. The White Dragon clan actually produced someone like you. Interesting. He then raised his hand and used the cloud connection stone to contact the White Fatty. Not long after, the White Fatty came in and nodded when he saw Lu Yin. He was still the same as before, and no matter how brilliant Lu Yin's performance was, it had nothing to do with him. He just focused on being a good-for-nothing. Little Wang, how long have you been in the Yin Mountain region? Zhou Xian asked kindly when he saw the White Fatty. The White Fatty looked foolish, but he was actually quite shrewd. When he heard Zhou Xi's question, he immediately felt that something was amiss and subconsciously looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin smiled kindly and the White Fatty relaxed a little. How long? Zhou Xi asked again. No matter what his reputation was, he was still the master of the Yin Mountain region's humble school and an emissary. All cultivators below the emissary level had to treat him with respect, and the White Fatty was no exception. He quickly replied, yes, it's been a few years. Zhou Xi smiled. You haven't made any contributions in the past few years, have you? Will you be able to report back to your family? The White Fatty gulped and looked at Lu Yin again. Lu Yin smiled and looked at the White Fatty encouragingly. The White Fatty was stunned. What did he mean? Zhou Xi moved his finger and the list flew over to the White Fatty. He caught it and blinked. Uncle C? What's this? Zhou Xi replied, we've captured everyone on this list. They're very likely to be spies. The White Fatty's mouth fell open and he pointed at himself. Me? Zhou Xi nodded seriously. The White Fatty looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin's smile grew even brighter. Congratulations, you're about to make a contribution. The White Fatty gulped and looked at Zhou Xi. Can I not go? Zhou Xi's face darkened. What, are you thinking of betraying humanity? Betraying humanity was a serious crime. Even the head of the 4 cardinal scales Wang family wouldn't be able to shoulder it, let alone the White Fatty. As the head of a humble family, this sentence was easily uttered, and because of his status, there was a high chance that it would be confirmed. The White Fatty was frightened and almost jumped up. Uncle C, don't scare me. I'm a coward and can't be scared. Zhou Xi leaned against the wall lazily, just as Lu Yin had seen him before. Then go capture them. The Yin Mountain district doesn't keep idle people. You're the biggest idle person, the White Fatty grumbled to himself. He looked at Lu Yin and smiled. Brother, why don't you go capture them? Strike while the iron is hot and capture a few more. Who knows, you might be able to exchange them for a tree emblem. Lu Yin's expression was serious. It's good that everyone is doing well. If I'm the only one who makes a contribution, I won't feel at ease. The White Fatty definitely didn't believe him, but he couldn't refute him. In the end, he could only lead his team to capture the spies. Lu Yin wasn't idle either. He didn't touch the spies on the list, but that didn't mean that he wouldn't cause trouble for the other spies. The spies he'd learned from Guan Yun's mind were the ones who were truly valuable. The Yin Mountain district was famous for being a place for the commoners to retire. No one had expected Long 7 to capture 4 spies in a row. Now even the fatty from the Wang family, Wang Dashuai, had been mobilized and captured 3 spies in a row. When the 3 Guan brothers heard the news, they immediately cursed. That idiot from the Wang family caught those spies on purpose. We used them as bait, and now that they've all been captured, what's the point of playing? Guan Yun was furious. Guan Hai's expression turned ugly. Not many people know the identities of those spies, and they're all from the upper echelons of the commoners. Yuchen definitely knows. Second brother, are you saying that Yuchen sold those spies out? But why would she help that fatty from the Wang family? Guan Yun didn't understand. Guan Tong snorted. He wasn't helping Fatty Wang but Long Qi. He purposely exposed his spy to Long Qi so that Long Qi would anger us. On one hand he'd ruin our plans and on the other he'd make us seem incompetent, so that we'd have no choice but to oppose Long Qi. But Long Qi wasn't stupid either, and I don't know what method he used to capture Fatty Wang. Why are we the unlucky ones again? Guan Yun was unhappy. Guan Tong's eyes flashed. Looks like Yuchen is determined to get us. She wants us to deal with Long 7. Guan Hai frowned. If that's the case then there's no other way. We can't offend Bai Xiaohong. Although dealing with Long 7 might involve the four-way scales, it's still better than being mocked for being useless. The three of us can't let Long 7 ruin our reputation. We're from the commoners, so even if the White Dragon tribe is unhappy, it won't be easy for them to deal with us. Guan Tong nodded. At this point if they didn't do it they would offend Bai Xiaohong and their reputation would be ruined. They would be played for nothing, but if they did it they would offend the White Dragon tribe. After weighing the pros and cons they gritted their teeth and said, "Agree." In the sky to the north of Huaying, a huge and ugly brown bird flew past. There were dozens of people on its back and in the middle was a fat middle-aged man. He was dressed in silk and he looked extraordinarily gorgeous. He had 7 or 8 cosmic rings on his hand and it was obvious that he was rich. At this moment the fat middle-aged man looked apprehensive and he kept looking behind him. Faster, faster, faster. At this moment, a dozen figures appeared in a row in front of him. Around them more and more cultivators appeared and floated in the air. These cultivators were all from the fat man's team. The fat man also appeared and looked at the group on the strange bird's back proudly. "Obediently follow me back and you'll suffer less. If you dare to resist I'll make you wish you were dead." The fat middle-aged man despaired. "It's over. We were still discovered. It's over. The commoners are here. Do not act rashly," the fat man shouted, scaring the group on the strange bird into not daring to move. They were all cultivators protecting the fat middle-aged man, and when they heard that they were being captured by the commoners, they immediately gave up resisting. The commoners had too much power and their lives could be taken with a single thought. They didn't dare resist. The fat man exhaled in satisfaction. He never thought that capturing someone would feel so good. Why hadn't he known before?